and streaming live around the world at beavercountyradio.com.
Now, it's time to talk on Teleforum on Beaver County Radio. 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and beavercountyradio.com. And now, here is the host of the show, Eddy Crow.
No, we're not Eddy Crow today. We're Tom Young today. And this is a new adventure for me. We're going to spend 3 hours together, and I've got a lot of things to talk about today. I hope you'll get interested about some of the subjects we're going to talk about. Give us a call at 724-774-1888 or 724-843-1888, and we will have a chat. But I want to hear some opinions today. I want to hear some thoughts. Just to give you a rundown, I'm going to be here from 9 to noon today, taking place for Eddy, who hosts me when I do my once-a-month radio show as the financial coach. But this is going to be interesting. And some of the subjects we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about health and fitness, finance, education, family, religion, politics, the Federal Reserve, debt of the country, digital currency, and maybe some transgender. And how do you feel about your kids being indoctrinated in elementary school to the new attitude and the wokeness of our government? And then we're going to talk about attitude. In other words, we're going to talk about success and how do we find that magic dream that we all have, we're all looking for, chasing. Most of us are chasing. Going to talk about a book I'm working on right now, and I haven't completed it yet, by Napoleon Hill, called Outwitting the Devil. It is an interesting book. And Napoleon Hill wrote this key book, was Think and Grow Rich. And that book, I've read it probably 20 times in the last 25, 30 years, and it has made a profound difference in my life. But this Outwitting the Devil is Napoleon Hill's story. It's where he got started. And if you understand or ever read Think and Grow Rich, you understand the counsel of the mind, where you take control of your thinking when you go to sleep at night, and you can come up with answers, program your thoughts, etc. And he believes in his mind that he ended up outwitting the devil into an interview. And this interview with the devil, it gave him the privilege to ask any kind of question. And in the agreement with the devil must answer the questions truthfully and completely and honestly. And the interesting thing, it talks about the drifters. And when Napoleon Hill asked the devil in this book, says, well, how many people do you actually have influence and control over? And he basically said 98% of the population. And that sort of blew me away when I read that. But, what is going on here? And then he asked, one of the questions he asked him, he says, well, who are the people that you really don't have any control over and you have very little impact on? He says, well, those are the people that think for themselves. They're going after something. They're working towards goals. In other words, they have a purpose in their life. They're doing something with their life. They're making a difference in other people's lives. So if you're not going somewhere in your life, you don't have a dream and a goal and a passion to find out what your purpose is, what God put you on the planet for, then you really got to understand you may be a drifter. And in this book, he said, drifters are the people that I have no problem controlling, because when I read that, I thought about a ball in a pinball machine. There's no purpose. You got the flippers on the bottom, and you try to keep the ball in play, and that's sort of, in my mind, what drifters are going forward. And I'm sort of a health nut. I do P90X, P90X2, P90X3. I do yoga and practice Tai Chi. And at 73 years old, I call it 10. I add the numbers together now, so we do 7 and 3 is 10, and so on. And my goal is to live to 120. Now, that may sound strange, and that's my goal. That's what it is. And I brought an article today. This is out of a paper, Epoch Times. And if you don't get this paper, you need to get it. It's a $50 annual subscription. You get a paper once a week, and it takes me a week to consume and read this newspaper. It is a right-leaning paper. It is journalism that talks about any and all the stories out there, and everything I've read has really been direct and straightforward in what they do. And there's an article, it's in a section of the paper called Mind and Body. And it says here, Okinawa, Japan boasts astonishing number of centenarians. Now, centenarian, those are people that live to 100 years old and beyond. And around the world, there are right now 90,526 people above the age 100 on the planet. Okay? Among that record number of golden agers, the island of Okinawa has 1,334 centenarians, including 152 men and 1,182 women. Well, guys, do you understand the point there? If you look at statistics and my experience with the insurance business and actuarial studies, unfortunately, guys, we tend to go before the wives. Now, whether that's because of the work we do of our lifetime or because of the women we live with that use us up more than need be. But anyway, they have their most senior being 114. Now, can you imagine, folks? What are your thoughts out there? Don't be afraid. Pick up the phone, call in, and let's talk about health and fitness and this aging thing and how long we're going to live. But how much purpose do we have in that life? A lot of people that I've talked to say, I don't want to live that long. And why is that? Because I believe in our mind we're thinking about, well, my experience is I know so-and-so, and at 92 or 87, they needed to be cared for every day, all day long, and nobody was there to take care of them. So in their mind, they're wishing to die. And there is another story in the paper, in this paper, and this is dated December 28th, this edition of the paper, and there was a discussion in the paper about, should we give the doctors a license to kill? That was the headline of the paper. Euthanasia, and people get to a certain point, and there are places we know already where, if you wish to pass on, you can contact a doctor. There used to be a guy named Kevorkian. Anybody remember Dr. Kevorkian? And that was his forte, people that were terminally ill and whatever they were doing. But I think we need to take a break. We're going to take a break, and we'll come right back. Give us a call. Let's talk about health and fitness, how long you're going to live, and why or why not.
Children are the future, and your future career begins at Life Steps Early Education Center, hiring child care assistants and preschool teachers for full-time, part-time, or substitute positions. Life Steps offers 100% paid health, dental, and vision premiums for full-time staff, making a difference in the lives of children for nearly 100 years. Call Life Steps today at 724-283-1010 or visit lifesteps.net. That's lifesteps.net to find out more. Life Steps is an equal opportunity employer.
Tune in to Live Mike with Mike Romai, presented by Heritage Valley Health System, weekdays from 6:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. It's an all-new show on Beaver County Radio, where Mike discusses the issues important to Beaver County.
Urinated at a car wash in front of children. Oh, yeah, and police officers.
I think it's the end of society as we know. I think it's one of the signs of the apocalypse.
There's also special guests, weather, sports with Matt Durzick, and news every half hour with Curtis Walsh. So tune in to Live Mike with Mike Romai, weekdays, right here on Beaver County Radio.
I had to see an oral and maxillofacial surgeon because my wisdom teeth were impacted. I got them out and had an uneventful recovery.
The pain was becoming unbearable. I didn't know that the roots of wisdom teeth can lengthen and become entangled around the nerves in the lower jaw. My surgery was more complicated, and I had to reschedule my family vacation.
One of my wisdom teeth never came all the way in. In my 30s, it started to hurt. A lot. It was infected. My recovery took a week.
I had a cyst around my impacted wisdom tooth. I was referred to an OMS to have it removed. I was so worried. I wish I would have taken care of this when I was younger.
Some things get better with age. Your wisdom teeth are not one of them. Make an appointment with an oral and maxillofacial surgeon today to evaluate your wisdom teeth. When caring for your wisdom teeth, pain-free does not necessarily mean disease-free. Visit myoms.org to find an OMS near you.
Now entering our 75th year of serving Beaver County. You're listening to 99.3 FM, 95.7 FM, 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA. Part of the St. Barnabas Radio Network.
Well, folks, so we're back, and let's continue our journey. While we were on the break, I was talking to Matt here, and we were talking about this longevity. Well, you know, in the Old Testament, let's go back, and some of those people, was recorded in the Bible, lived hundreds of years, and why is that? How did they do that to live hundreds of years? And what is it? Is it pollution in the air? You know, there are things that are going on that very few people are aware of. Now, I'm gonna share some information with you that you need to do your own research. Okay, so I'm not an expert on what I'm going to tell you, but I'm just regurgitating some of the stuff that I've read, and there are a couple of things that are going on around the world that most people don't know of, and one of them are chemtrails, and that is the government. And Bill Clinton did a talk, 91 or 99, 2000, when he was president, and talked about experiments that the government had done in the past on military and civilians by things that they do that you and I don't know anything about. And you know, we look at all this technology that we have today, and we have to step back and realize that all of this current technology is outdated technology that the government discarded, the military discarded. They created the internet and all of those things, and then here we are today. And I just think in my mind, what are they working on today? And there are two things that I've read about extensively. One of them is called the chemtrails, where they have these big airplanes. You ever look up in the sky and you see these white streams in the sky from behind airplanes, and sometimes they're quite large and quite vast, and they seem to last forever and ever up there. Now, typically the high-speed hyperjets, they put off this moisture stream that comes from behind them, which is the white coming off of it, but they actually have airplanes, and I've seen pictures of them, where they spray the atmosphere with chemicals. The question is, what kind of chemicals? And how does that affect your and my ability to have a long, healthy life when we compare with the folks in the Old Testament, again, that lived hundreds of years? So what is the difference between them then and us now? Another one is called HAARP, HAARP. And this is a system, and the numbers, I think, are somewhere between 28 or 30 of these installations around the world. They are military installations, and what they do is they spray microwaves, high-intensity microwaves, into the sky to effectuate climate control. Now, climate control, global warming, this is a whole nother topic of what's going on, and there are scientists, they're like split. On one side, they say this is not true, it's a hoax. There really hasn't been any determinable changes in interest rates over a number of years. I remember back in the 70s, actually listened to a video recently that they were talking of the coming ice age back in the 70s. Well, what happened between the 70s and here we are now? We're predicting the heat is going to get so big and the oceans are going to rise and the ice is going to melt. But 50 years ago, they were worried about an ice age coming. So HAARP is a unique thing, and they're trying and experimenting to control the weather. Now, if they're doing things like this to control the weather, what does that really mean to you and I when they're talking about this climate change stuff? And I have a theory, Tom's theory, called the lemming effect. And we're going to go to news here in a couple minutes, and I'll talk about this, and we'll come back after the news and expand. But the lemming effect is little lemmings are little creatures, and some of you may have heard about them, but there's no leadership in their little rodents, lemmings. And little George Lemming one morning got up, and he was tired of life, and today he decided he was going to take his life. So he lived on the west side of Lemmingville, and on the east side of Lemmingville was a cliff down to the ocean, 400 feet down and rocks. And he was going to run through town as fast as he could, run to the cliff and straight off the cliff and end his life by falling to the rocks below. Well, George Lemming got up and he starts running. And he's running as fast as he can go, and he's going and he's going and he's going. And he hits the edge of town, and all of a sudden, Mary Lemming and Bill Lemming and all the other lemmings, where's George going? And they all jump out and they start following George, and they're chasing him and running as fast as they can, chasing George, and they followed him right off the cliff. Now, billionaires of the World Economic Forum, the New World Order, and things that you may not heard about, but these are things that are deep and they're going on right now. That there is a bunch of billionaires in the world that believe that we are not smart enough to be who we are, and they need to be in control. And the billionaire lemming effect is they put enough information in the news media that we now know colludes with governments to change the way people think, and we'll talk more about that later in our 3 hours today. But the billionaire lemming effect, they get a big enough group of people moving in a certain direction, they move right out in front of them, and they sell them stuff, sell them services, and they make more money. That's the billionaire lemming effect. And I guess we'll take a break and go to the news, Matt.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and go to the news.
After I got out of the Marine Corps, coming back home, it was just a mental breakdown for me. I was on the verge of giving up. That chapter, that season in my life was over. Now what? Who was I? That's what I kept asking myself. The pressure to have it all together, to heal, to quiet down the monsters inside, it was too much. I lost it. I had heard about the Wounded Warrior Project. I had seen the logo and that visual of a warrior carrying another warrior. The programs that the Wounded Warrior Project offers, it's not just the veteran themselves, it's their whole family. It brings it all together. We have scars that we carry, and just because the scars are there doesn't mean that we're any less than what we were. Right now, I'm the best version that I ever have been of myself. I can embrace the brokenness.
You wouldn't go into battle alone. You don't have to fight this alone. Visit woundedwarriorproject.org/notalone.
Tune in every Saturday morning at 8:30 a.m. for another insightful edition of Living Well, a special segment on Beaver County Radio designed to help you enjoy the best, most fulfilling, and healthiest life possible. Hosted by Dr. Joseph Maroon and Jeff Boast, and presented by St. Barnabas. Living Well, Saturday mornings at 8:30, right here on Beaver County Radio, WBVP Beaver Falls, WMBA Ambridge, along with 99.3 FM and 95.7 FM. Beaver County Radio's news source, 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com. Here's Curtis Walsh.
Good morning. We can expect mostly cloudy skies today with a high near 42. We'll have a complete Beaver County Radio weather forecast after this look at news. 3 people were arrested by Aliquippa police after a brawl in West Aliquippa. Here's Beaver County Radio News correspondent Sandy Giordano with more.
Justin Lee Carr, 28, reported his vehicle had been stolen last Monday in Aliquippa. Later that afternoon, he phoned police using obscenities to inform him that he found his car behind a police station. He hung up according to the criminal complaint. The officer called him back, and he used loud obscenities again. Police went to his address, 419 Allegheny Avenue, and ran the vehicle's registration, and it was reported stolen. 2 other individuals, Monica McCutcheon and Theon Lewis, arrived on scene, confronting officers, loudly yelling, screaming, and threatening them, and refusing to comply with police commands. Lewis threw a punch at Officer Paul Woods as police were attempting to restrain him, according to Officer Bruce Tuch's statement. McCutcheon shoved Officer Woods, jumped on his back, and continued throwing more punches. Officer Toots grabbed McCutcheon and restrained her hold on Officer Woods. Lewis continued punching and pushing Officer Woods, and Sergeant Nicholas Dorego and Woods were able to maneuver around him, placing him on the ground and eventually restraining him. Sergeant Dorego restrained McCutcheon and placed her under arrest. Officer Woods was treated at the scene by firefighters for multiple lacerations. Carr was charged with disorderly conduct and is in the Beaver County Jail following arraignment. His bond is set at $5,000. McCutcheon is charged with aggravated assault, resisting arrest, other law enforcement, obstruction of administrative law, other government functions, as is Lewis, charged with the same offenses. Bond for McCutcheon and Lewis is set at $150,000 each. This is Sandy Giordano reporting for Beaver County Radio.
The 2023 Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day commemoration, hosted by the Midland Women's Civic Club, will take you back through time to one of the most significant events in American civil rights history, the 1963 March on Washington. The presentation will feature dialogue with Miss Rutha Mae Harris, an original freedom singer, and local residents who marched with Dr. King that day. The moderator is Beaver Falls native and prominent Messiah University Vice President for Diversity Affairs and Professor of Communication, Dr. Todd Allen. The public is welcome and encouraged to access the presentation free of charge on Monday, January 16th at 1 p.m. at Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center's YouTube channel. The New Brighton Area School District has hired 2 new employees. Matt Durzik has further details on that and more from Monday night's school board meeting.
A special voting meeting was held by the New Brighton Area School Board at their first meeting of 2023 on Monday night. At that meeting, the board unanimously approved the hiring of Kara Stormfels as a business office secretary for the school district and Nick Long as the director of student services. Several items were submitted for approval at the regular committee meeting that followed, including the finalized approval for the 2023-24 high school curriculum handbook, the purchase of a new PA system in the New Brighton Middle School, and the hirings of 2 staff members along with 15 coaches for varsity and middle school track, varsity baseball, varsity softball, and varsity and middle school volleyball. The items submitted at the committee meeting will be voted on at the second meeting later this month. The full story can be found at beavercountyradio.com. From New Brighton, I'm Matt Durzik for Beaver County Radio News.
We have confirmed the lost cow that found its way to Green Garden Plaza in Aliquippa Friday night has made it home. Hopewell police responded to the cow wandering through the parking lot and managed to contact the owner, who eventually managed to get him home. This newscast is being brought to you by MRS Physical Therapy.
You don't have to have had an accident, suffered a sports injury, or undergone surgery to take advantage of the benefits of physical therapy from Dale Reckless at MRS Physical Therapy. At a recent live broadcast at MRS Physical Therapy in Bridgewater, Dale Reckless talked about treatment for the common foot pain condition, plantar fasciitis.
Plantar fasciitis is a pretty common thing, and I tell my patients, don't wait to come and get some treatment for it. The longer you wait, the more chronic it becomes. We'll still fix it, but it'll just take longer. If you come to see me when you're first getting the symptoms, then I can take care of it a lot quicker. What I do with plantar fasciitis is we give some stretches to do. I do a lot of hands-on exercise, and then I also do an evaluation of how they walk and how they stand. They need the hands-on work that I do to help cure the plantar fasciitis.
If you need physical therapy for any reason, choose the place that your friends and neighbors do. MRS Physical Therapy in Bridgewater and Cranberry Physical Therapy in Cranberry. Visit mrsphysicaltherapy.com.
Here's the Beaver County forecast on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Today's forecast is calling for mostly cloudy skies with a high near 42. Partly cloudy tonight going down to a low of 29. Mostly cloudy tomorrow reaching a high of 48. Showers Thursday with a high of 55 and a chance of showers and a possible snow shower on Friday with a high near 38. Here on this Tuesday, January the 10th, we're at 30 degrees with partly sunny skies here in Beaver County. That's a look at the news for now. I'm Curtis Walsh on 99.3 FM, 95.7 FM, 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming live around the world at beavercountyradio.com.
Talk about what's happening in Beaver County or around the world on Teleforum. 724-843-1888. 724-774-1888. It's Teleforum with Eddy Crow.
Well, here we are. We're back and continuing this journey today together. Let's expand. I want to talk about health and fitness, and let's move to the muscle. The muscle between the ears, the 6 inches between our ears, is the greatest real estate on the planet. Do you believe that? Do you understand that? The 6 inches between your ears. You have the ability to make all the decisions in your life to come, go, do, become, or whatever you want to do. So let's talk a little bit about mental fitness and goals and dreams. We talked about longevity and fitness during the first half hour, and I guess I'll push my little button here and go live on my Facebook page, that I didn't do that before, but anyway. So we're sitting here, and if we want to become mentally stable, we want to do things. We talked about outwitting the devil in our first segment, and how that Napoleon Hill in his conversation with the devil revealed how Satan controls us. And later on in the morning, we're going to talk a little bit about religion and Satan clubs in schools and those type of things. I don't know what you think about that, but I have my own opinion. We all have our own opinion. Perspective, we all have a perspective of life, but then our perceptions change because of the people we meet, the places we go, and the books we read changes our perception. So maybe today in my little 3-hour journey, I can change some perceptions of the way people think about some things and get more involved to protect and prevent some of the things that are trying to happen around us. Now, success in life is a journey. There's a little poem that I learned a long time ago, and I meet so many people that are traversing through life. They reach a certain point, and they believe they made it. They made it. Here it is. Well, upon the plains of hesitation sit the bones of countless millions who upon the threshold of success sit down to wait, and in waiting they died. Don't ever forget, there is no destination. There are stops along the way when you achieve a goal, but you have to immediately strive to the next level. Maslow's theory of hierarchy talked about that when he talked about the first level was, basic survival. And then the next one is food, shelter, and clothing, and then companionship, and then love, and then I can be all I can be. In other words, it's that mental things that happen in our mind. When I get to a certain level in life, all of a sudden, most people, I want to go to the next level. I want more. And so that is a journey through life. So how do we do that? One of the most important things that I have learned is about self-talk. In other words, the person that looks back in the mirror, you need to like and love the person that looks back in the mirror. If you don't like the person that looks back in the mirror, you're going to have a hard time relating and having relationships with other people. And the first level of this, of self-talk, is paying attention to what we say and how we say it and when we say it, because it becomes important. Our own words are the most powerful influence on that 6-inch muscle between our ears. So when we say things and things come out of our mouth, and I'll get to personalities, DISC, we'll talk about that in a minute, but self-talk is so important. And level 1 of self-talk, and we've all done this. Oh, I can't do that. I can't see myself doing that. I can't. My dad used to have a term for me when I was growing up. When I would say I can't, he would always say to me, Tom, can't never did anything. And really what it amounts to is you're fooling yourself and not really going where you need to go and doing that. So you need to be aware of the things you say. If only I could, or I wish I could, but I can't. Do you say those words to yourself sometimes? Well, you shoot yourself in the foot. That's what you're doing. Now, level 2 of self-talk is a different level. It's a level of recognition and a need to change. I need to. I should. I ought to, but I can't, but I'm not. And if you think of your mind, what we have in our mind, we have the conscious mind, which is right there. You're listening to me, and I've got control of your conscious mind today. But then we also have a subconscious mind. And the subconscious mind, I may say something, and because of my bad habits of thinking and my past experience, my mind says, yeah, but I'm not. But I couldn't do that. We make all these excuses. Level 3 self-talk is a level of decision to change. I never did that. I no longer. First to work for you and not against you. I never smoked. I no longer have a problem dealing with people at work. I never eat more than I should. I never get upset at traffic. I no longer put off doing anything I want to get done. Even if you do what you say you don't or never do, your subconscious will eventually stop you. Level 4 of self-talk is where you really start to take control. This is where the difference comes into play. This is the level of the better you. I am. Most effective, the words I am. This is the me I want you to create. Forget all the bad programming I gave you in the past. Now you're talking to yourself in your mind. Forget all the bad programming I gave you in the past. This is your new programming. Now let's get to work at it. I am organized. I'm in control of my life. I'm a winner. I am healthy. I'm energetic, and I'm going for it. I do everything I need to do when I need to do it. I enjoy doing things on time and in the right way. I have a great memory. People are important to me, and I am able to remember any name I choose to remember anytime I want. I'm a winner. I believe in myself. I respect myself, and I like who I am. I have made the decision to win in my life, and that's what I'm doing. When we talk about these things, and this takes practice, folks, this isn't something that just, boom, there it is. You have to make a conscious decision that you want to make your future different. When I meet people on the financial plane and talking about money and finances, and we look at things that they have done in the past, and it's always, I can't turn the clock back. I don't have a time machine. We can't go back and start over. But what we can do going forward from today is we can change the ending of the story. Do you want to change the end of your story? Give us a call. Let's talk about it and see where it goes. The level 5 of self-talk is the level of universal affirmation. Self-talk of oneness with God. I am one with the universe, and it is one with me. I am of it, within it, and exist as a shining spark in a firmament of divine goodness. It's interesting. The self-talk for building self-esteem, you write these things down. I really am very special. I like who I am, and I feel good about myself. Remember, you have to like you first before you can like other people. So that's important. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back in a couple minutes and expand a little bit more on self-talk.
The best of Beaver County is easy to discover. It's right here on your radio. Tune in Beaver County Radio or watch the best of Beaver County live on Facebook or YouTube video this and every Thursday from 11 to 11:30. The program is made possible by St. Barnabas. For over 3 years now, the show has been dedicated to shining light on the great things going on right here in your neighborhood and the people that are making it happen. This Thursday, enjoy conversation and insight from an intriguing lineup of guests who are creating excitement and having an impact right here in Beaver County. Your friends and neighbors at St. Barnabas are pleased to support the best of Beaver County. The radio broadcast will also be replayed each week from 11:30 to noon on Sundays on Beaver County Radio. Archived Best of Beaver County videos can be viewed on the WBVP WMBA Facebook page. It's your chance to encounter the best of Beaver County with host Mike Romai this Thursday starting at 11. For more information, visit beavercountyradio.com.
Hey, what's up, y'all? I'm Kelly Clarkson, and as the daughter of a school teacher, I know just how important education is. No matter how old you are or your situation, continuing to learn will enrich your life and help remove barriers you didn't even know were there. So much opportunity, y'all. Whether it's a foreign language, history, or a different way to look at things, take some time each day to learn something new. This message is courtesy of the United States Air Force.
From the opening tip-off to the final buzzer, you can follow high school basketball all season long right here on Beaver County Radio. Follow your favorite team by keeping your radio dial right here throughout the season. High school basketball coverage is being brought to you in part by Beaver County Career Technology Center, the St. Barnabas Healthcare System, William Murphy Funeral Home, Fry Transportation, Community College of Beaver County, Fisher's Foodland, Friendly Federal Credit Union, Luxembourg Garbutt Kelly and George, Falcone's Moon Township Board, the Gay Bauer Lutton Funeral Home and Crematory, and Beaver County Radio. 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and BeaverCountyRadio.com.
It's the diamond anniversary year of Beaver County Radio, and it's bigger and better than ever. We're now part of the St. Barnabas Radio Network and simulcasting on 4 radio stations and online at BeaverCountyRadio.com.
Hey, we're back, and we have more information. You know, we were talking about self-talks, and I just wanted to share a few lines of self-talk. Although I always work to improve myself, and I get better every day, I like who I am today, and tomorrow, when I am even better, I like myself then too. It's true that there really is no one else like me in the entire world. There never was another me before, and there will never be another me again. You know, we are unique. God created each and every one of us in his image with no one else like you. You know, our retina scan is unique. Our fingerprints are unique. I understand the ear, if they ink your ear, the shape of your ear, it's unique. Each one of us has that uniqueness about each and every one of us, and it is our responsibility to do something with that. Now, I'm going to sidebar from that for a minute, and this is a headline in the newspaper, this Epoch Times, and again, this is December 21st edition, Why the Redefinition of the Word Woman Matters. You know, this is getting into people's head, and people that say a man can become pregnant. I guarantee you a man cannot become pregnant. I don't care what anybody says. There was an article I was reading in the current paper that I didn't bring with me last night, and they were talking about artificial wombs, and they're looking at creating babies artificially without the womb of a woman. And it is scary stuff that is going on, and what they're talking about in all of these things. You know, this mental fitness that I talk about, it is a decision. It is up to you to control your thinking and what you do. You know, as moms and dads raising children, you are truly the superheroes of the world. You know, and the example, I did a talk in Houston, Texas about 6-7 years ago now, and the title of the talk was Be the Example. And this is so critical and so important because you don't know who's watching you. The neighbor kid, your own children, friends, neighbors, people at work. There are people that are watching you. And how you live your life, the things you do, has a tremendous impact, has an influence on other people. Each and every one of us are influencers in some way to other people. Now, with that, it is a tremendous responsibility to be an influencer, because that influence that you and I aspire, that radiation, that I call it the atmosphere that follows you around. And I'm trying to think, what was the little kid's name? Matt, do you remember the one that he walked around and there was a cloud over his head? Everywhere he went, he had the cloud. I don't know what that was. Linus. Linus had the blanket.
Yeah, Linus had the blanket. I think. Are you talking about Pigpen by chance?
Yeah. Okay. And everywhere he went, he had this little cloud, you know, all around him, and he carried it with him. So you and I, each one of us, develop and create an atmosphere. And here's a question for you. Have you ever been around somebody that you couldn't wait to get away from them? You know, based on what they were saying, maybe they had their own odor in their atmosphere. I don't know, but all through life, these experiences that you and I have an effect on who you're going to become, how you're going to become who you're going to become, Are you in control of it, or are you allowing the rest of the world to control that in everything that you do? So we need to think about that all the time. You need to be responsible for being the example. Now, everything we've talked about in this first hour today, let me summarize and review some of the things we talked about, because I learned in professional speaking, you tell people what you're going to say, you tell them what you said, and then you tell them what, you tell them, and then you tell them what you said. So I want to do this. So we talked about health and fitness today. This thing that's going on around us can have a very negative effect on us. We're going to talk later on in our show today. We're going to talk about digital currency, and maybe you lose your ability to go to the bank and get cash. Cash is not going to go away, but as they move to this digital currency that the Federal Reserve is starting to implement in certain ways, that could become the point. I always tell people, how much cash do you have at home that you can put your hands on? And I always tell people, you need to have 3 to 6 months of cash at home in a box, in a fireproof box, a little safe at home or somewhere, and just for that kind of an emergency that may or may not come, and talking about that. So, we talked about longevity in the island of Okinawa in Japan, and people living to 114 years old. Now, why is that? How do people do that? The article, I remember, these folks 10-to-1 carbohydrates to protein. Now, if you think about everything that you and I read, because I'm a nut about health and fitness, and we think about that, and they're on their 10-to-1 carbs to protein. I've always learned that you have to have an equal amount of protein versus the carbs. And it's the carbs versus fiber carbs. So if you look at carbs, carbohydrates, they are fiber things you do that are carbs, carbohydrates. So you take total carbs minus the carbs generated by fiber that you consume, and then you want that to equal the amount of protein you eat in a day. So that is the balance. And then when I read this article about these folks in Okinawa, and they're consuming 10-to-1 carbohydrates to protein, that sort of blew me away. We talked about self-talk and developing self-talk. I have a self-talk that I repeat twice a day. I know I have the ability to achieve the object of my definite purpose in life. Therefore, I demand of myself persistent, continuous action toward its attainment, and I here and now promise to render such action. I know the dominating thoughts of my mind will eventually reproduce themselves in outward physical reaction and eventually transform themselves into physical reality. Therefore, I will concentrate my thoughts for 20 minutes daily upon the thought of the person I intend to become. And that's just a part of it. So, do you have a self-talk? Do you really want to be successful? Do you really want to accomplish something? And all of this is not just for you folks. It's for being the example for others. Because if you look around us, we are the product of the influence of people around us from way back to when we were in the womb. We know that women that were pregnant, the baby, they played music. They played classical music, and the baby stirred in their womb. The stories that I have read about those kind of things, and it's just amazing. And I'll close this segment today with a little story about a little boy. And I read this story a long time ago, and it was about a young man, 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, and he was diagnosed with some kind of cancer. And the doctors gave him 6 months to live, maybe maximum 6 to 12 months to live. And the parents, they took him to Mount Sinai. They took him to Cleveland Clinic. They traveled from one hospital to another looking for a doctor that had an answer to help them save their little boy. And all of a sudden, a friend of theirs, because all the doctors said the same thing. Well, this is the diagnosis. It's really what's going to happen. And then they had a friend who was in the Olympics. And if you watch the Olympics, and most of us have watched the Olympics at one time or another, and we watch these young people perform unbelievable stunts and exercises and running and the things that they do to become number one in the world. Now, if I talk about the 6 inches between our ears, And all of the bombardment that we have all day of that, from all kinds of noises, the financial programming through advertising, the companies spend billions of dollars to program you to think the way they want you to think, cause us to become drifters and average also-rans in life. We never really accomplish anything. Well, anyway, they talked to these people, and they hired a sports psychologist. The sports psychologist agreed to work with this child in what they were doing, because if you think of the Olympics, how much mental control do you have to be that number one, to win, to be better than everybody else at what you're doing? You've practiced, you've worked. So the psychologist agreed to work with this young man. And so every day, the psychologist, for a number of weeks, he taught the little boy how to have a mental storyboard, and they had war games every day in his mind. Little boys like soldiers. I remember when I was a kid, I had these little plastic G.I. Joes and all those kind of things when I was a kid. So this little boy, he had to think about this army, the Red Army and the White Army. Obviously, the Red Army was the bad army. The White Army was the good army, the stem cells where we're at. And so every day, they sat and they talked, and they played this mental war game on and on and on and over and over and over. And every time they played the game, the White Army always won. The White Army always won. And after about 90 days, there was no more cancer. Now, we have all read stories about people that found a way to unlock that power that is inside every human, every brain that is out there. That's all I'm talking about, folks. You can open that mind and open the door to whatever you choose to be, do, or want to become.
When accidents and injuries happen, you need the experience and insight of the legal team at Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George, a law firm of AV-rated attorneys and super lawyers. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George, helping you put your life back together. Attorney Joe George.
You worry about getting better. You worry about taking care of the medical side of things. We'll take care of all the legal side. I don't want you worrying about whether a letter needs to go out to an insurance company. You worry about getting to your doctor's appointments. You worry about getting your physical therapy appointments. You worry about getting better. If you have to have surgery, you worry about take you back and forth to the surgical center or the hospital. And all those things, I try to put my client at ease from the standpoint of, look, this is where things are going to go. You just worry about getting there on your side of things.
For your initial consultation, call the law firm of Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George at 724-658-8535 or online at lgkg.com. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George, keeping promises for over 80 years.
Here at Beaver County Radio, 1230 WBVP and 1460 WNBA, we just love giving away prizes and making winners out of our listeners on a regular occurrence. If you'd like a complete list of the WBVP and WNBA prize contest rules, just visit beavercountyradio.com.
You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WNBA Ambridge.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. California continues to be swept by powerful storms coming in off the Pacific, forcing evacuation of thousands in towns with histories of deadly mudslides.
On Monday, a 5-year-old boy was swept away by floodwaters when his mother's truck became stranded in floodwaters near Paso Robles. Officials have called off that search because water levels are too high. In San Bruno, resident Monty Bolt tells TV station KGO that a huge tree from her yard crashed onto a neighbor's home and car. She says they're okay.
We didn't hear anything, but when we came out the next morning and our neighbors next door text us to say, we've gone to our friends.
Some streets have turned into gushing rivers and mud and rock slides are blocking some roads. I'm Donna Warder.
Some documents marked classified have surfaced in a private office at the Penn Biden Center think tank. That's where Mr. Biden maintained an office after he left the vice presidency in 2017, until before he launched his presidential campaign in 2019. The Justice Department is investigating. The new Republican-led House lays the foundation for its work going forward.
The House approved the Republican rules package by a vote of 220 to 213. Outgoing Rules Committee Chairman Jim McGovern used the debate to attack the new GOP coalition.
You know, these rules are not a serious attempt at governing. They're essentially a ransom note to America from the extreme right.
Incoming Rules Committee Chairman Tom Cole says that Congress will be a counterbalance to the Biden administration and Democrats.
With today's rule package, we will also establish a new select subcommittee modeled on the Church Committee to investigate the radical left's weaponization of the federal government in recent years.
Bernie Bennett at the Capitol.
The Dow is up 42 points and NASDAQ ahead 26 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
We're entering a time of increasing hostility against people of faith, a time when Christians are going to be tested on a moral and physical and financial basis, unlike any other time in our lifetime. I'm Lance Wallnau, Christian author, evangelical leader, here to remind you that you have to take action to protect and steward what God has given you. For example, record high inflation is going to continue to eat away at the dollar, and the savings of your retirement account is in danger. Fortunately, God does provide a way. To protect your retirement, I recommend diversifying your 401k or IRA out of paper and into physical gold. And the best way to do that is with a gold IRA from Birch Gold Group. Now, to see how it works, just text the word faith to 989898. That'll give you access to a free info kit on gold IRAs. There are no strings attached, so text FAITH, F-A-I-T-H, to 989898 right now, and I pray your family is blessed with peace of mind because you took action.
A ship carrying 60,000 tons of wheat from Russia has arrived in the Pakistani port of Karachi amid a worsening shortage in several parts of the country.
Wheat is a staple food crop of Pakistan, and it's one of the largest producers of the grain in the world. But the country is suffering from severe shortages. Pakistan's own wheat crops were devastated by floods last year, and dwindling foreign currency reserves make it difficult to import. The authorities in Balochistan province said stocks were running out and urged the federal government to dispatch more wheat on an urgent basis. Due to the shortages, the price of flour has gone up by up to 80% in some parts of the country in the past year.
That's BBC's Embarrassing Etirajan. British officials and space scientists say they are disappointed but not deterred after the first attempt to launch satellites into orbit from the UK failed. News and analysis, townhall.com. A section of the nation's largest fuel pipeline is back in business.
This comes days after it was shut down by a diesel fuel leak in Virginia. Colonial Pipeline says the affected line returned to normal operations Sunday after repairs at the Witt Booster Station near Danville. The Georgia-based company says the spill was detected last Tuesday during a routine station check. The 2,500-gallon spill contained on site between soil and an adjacent stormwater retention pond. 20 trucks of contaminated soil expected to be removed from the site, and groundwater wells are being sampled for contamination. John Scott reported.
Former White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders to be sworn in today as Arkansas's 47th governor, assuming a seat her father once held and becoming the first woman in that job. Sanders will take the oath of office in the State House of Representatives before delivering a speech to a joint session of the state legislature. More on these stories, townhall.com.
Beaver County Radio's news source, 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com. Here's Curtis Walsh.
Good morning. We can expect mostly cloudy skies today with a high near 42. We'll have a complete Beaver County radio weather forecast after we take this look at news. The New Brighton Area School District has hired 2 new employees. Matt Durzik has further details on that and more from Monday night's school board meeting.
A special voting meeting was held by the New Brighton Area School Board at their first meeting of 2023 on Monday night. At that meeting, the board unanimously approved the hiring of Kara Stormfels as a business office secretary for the school district and Nick Long as the director of student services. Several items were submitted for approval at the regular committee meeting that followed, including the finalized approval for the 2023-24 high school curriculum handbook, the purchase of a new PA system in the New Brighton Middle School, and the hirings of 2 staff members along with 15 coaches for varsity middle school track, varsity baseball, varsity softball, and varsity and middle school volleyball. The items submitted at the committee meeting will be voted on at the second meeting later this month. The full story can be found at beavercountyradio.com. From New Brighton, I'm Matt Durzik for Beaver County Radio News.
And 3 people were arrested by Aliquippa police after a brawl in West Aliquippa. Here's Beaver County Radio News correspondent Sandy Giordano with more.
Justin Lee Carr, 28, reported his vehicle had been stolen last Monday in Aliquippa. Later that afternoon, he phoned police using obscenities to inform him that he found his car behind a police station. He hung up, according to the criminal complaint. The officer called him back, and he used loud obscenities again. Police went to his address, 419 Allegheny Avenue, and ran the vehicle's registration, and it was reported stolen. 2 other individuals, Monica McCutcheon and Theon Lewis, arrived on scene, confronting officers, loudly yelling, screaming, and threatening them, and refusing to comply with police commands. Lewis threw a punch at Officer Paul Woods as police were attempting to restrain him. According to Officer Bruce Tuch's statement, McCutcheon shoved Officer Woods, jumped on his back, and continued throwing more punches. Officer Tuch grabbed McCutcheon and restrained her hold on Officer Woods. Lewis continued punching and pushing Officer Woods, and Sergeant Nicholas Durego and Woods were able to maneuver around him, placing him on the ground and eventually restraining him. Sergeant Durego restrained McCutcheon and placed her under arrest. Officer Woods was treated at the scene by firefighters for multiple lacerations. Carr was charged with disorderly conduct and is in the Beaver County Jail following arraignment. His bond is set at $5,000. McCutcheon is charged with aggravated assault, resisting arrest, other law enforcement, obstruction of administrative law, other government functions, as is Lewis, charged with the same offenses. Bond for McCutcheon and Lewis is set as $150,000 each. This is Sandy Giordano reporting for Beaver County Radio.
We have confirmed the lost cow that found its way to Green Garden Plaza in Aliquippa Friday night has made it home. Hopewell police responded to the cow wandering through the parking lot and managed to contact the owner, who eventually managed to get him home. The 2023 Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day commemoration, hosted by the Midland Women's Civic Club, will take you back through time to one of the most significant events in American civil rights history, the 1963 March on Washington. The presentation will feature dialogue with Miss Rutha Mae Harris, an original freedom singer, and local residents who marched with Dr. King that day. The moderator is Beaver Falls native and prominent Messiah University Vice President for Diversity Affairs and Professor of Communication, Dr. Todd Allen. The public is welcome and encouraged to access the presentation free of charge on Monday, January 16th at 1 p.m. at Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center's YouTube channel.
Here's the Beaver County forecast on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Mostly cloudy skies today with a high near 42. Partly cloudy tonight going down to 29. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a high near 48. Showers on Thursday reaching a temperature of 55 degrees, and a chance of rain showers and a possible snow shower on Friday with a high of 38. Here on this Tuesday, January the 10th at 10 after 10, we're at 30 degrees with partly cloudy skies in Beaver County. That's a look at the news for now. I'm Curtis Walsh on 99.3 FM, 95.7 FM, 1230, WBVP, 1460, WMBA, and streaming live around the world at beavercountyradio.com.
Now, it's time to talk on Teleforum on Beaver County Radio. 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and beavercountyradio.com. And now, here is the host of the show, Eddy Crow.
Well, Eddy Crow isn't here today. I hope he's enjoying his vacation. Everybody needs some time away and time off. I'm Tom Young, and I'm here filling in for Eddy today. You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, along with 1230 WBBP and 1460 WMBA. We're also streaming live at the beavercountyradio.com and on Facebook Live this morning. And I also have a Facebook Live up and going on my Facebook on out there in the space. So, and I see I have a couple of people that are watching on here that are from around the world. So it's amazing. I am humbled by the people that follow me on that. You know, we've talked about a lot of things: health, fitness, mental fitness, and everything. Let me get into the next segment in a minute, but I want to finish up and I want to talk about 2023. What about your resolutions? Have you made any new resolutions for the new year of 2023? And if you haven't, when are you going to, or are you not? And if you've made a resolution, have you broken it already? So it is just funny. So let me give you 10 of the most important things to know in 2023 so that you would have a successful, healthy, happy 2023. Number one, know where you're going. What's your plan for the year? Where do you see yourself? Do you visualize? Do you see yourself at the end of this year at what you had accomplished? What are your goals? Number two, take responsibility for those decisions. It's up to you. If it is to be, it's up to me. You know, you have to take responsibility. Learn how to use self-talk. If you want some help, you can communicate with me through First Consultants, Inc. You can send me an email at firedupt@comcast.net or Thomas Young at 1stconsultantsinc.com. Some of the information I talked about today, I can make available to you. If you just want to talk or have some questions that you think I can help you with, please don't hesitate to give me a call. My goal in life at this point is to touch 1 million lives before I die in some positive way. Use self-talk. Learn how to do that. Number four, attitude of achievement and success that you choose. You choose your attitude, that atmosphere I was talking about. It really comes down to attitude. Do you have an attitude of success? Do you have an attitude of self-confidence? Have faith. Be willing to believe. And what's faith? Faith is believing in the unseen. Unwilling to give up. Never, never, never give up. Refuse to listen to doubts and negative opinions of others. I refer to those people as SNIOPs, S-N-I-O-P-S. That's my famous little thing, a significant negative influence of other people. And you need to avoid them like a plague because they will infect your attitude. Write out your goals, but just as important, read them once a week. Write down the things that you want to accomplish this year in detail. Find the time and take time for you. You know, you got to take some time for you, that freedom of a mind, meditation or whatever it is, and set the goal to feel good and be you. Those are my 10 things for the year. So let's move from there, and we're going to move now into education, some Fabian Society. How did we get where we are today? At this point in my life, I was in the Air Force. My dad was in the Army. My brother was in the Army. My other brother was in the Air Force. All the men in my family were in the military. And I cringe when I see on the nightly news that college kids have become negative. They want to burn the flag. Anybody that has a conservative or a different opinion than them, they have riots and they run them out of the colleges. What is going on in America today? I challenge you to pick up the phone and give me a call. Give me your opinion. I want to know what you're thinking about this because it greatly disturbs me. And the one thing that I'm looking at is a thing here that says the Fabian Society and depopulation. I've been hearing about this stuff and this one world order and the World Economic Forum, et cetera. These people have an agenda, and it is scary. And most of us don't know really what's going on because we're busy living our life day to day, paycheck to paycheck, and we don't see and hear a lot of this stuff going on. And sometimes I wish I didn't do as much research as I did because I didn't like what I found and what I read. And I guess some of it, they can say, oh, that's just a conspiracy theory. Well, folks, if you look over the last 6 years, everything that was a conspiracy theory has now been proven to be true. Isn't that interesting? The things that are going on and craziness about that. The Fabian Society started in about 1890. And it was two gentlemen from England military people. And the Fabian Society's long-term mission was to socialize the world, to create socialism around the world. Because back at that time in Europe, it was basically socialistic societies in the late 1800s and the very early 1900s. So this Fabian Society was created with the purpose of inch by inch, child by child, as part of our educational system, to lead people to believe and think like socialists, which leads to communism, and we hear a lot of that today. And maybe I can shake and rattle you a little bit today to stand up and be willing to make a difference in your atmosphere, that part around you. In 1933, now, you can look this up, do a search, do your own research. I'm challenging you to do some research. Look up the Fabian Society. In the 1930s, there were two well-known influencers in society that were part of this. One was George Bernard Shaw, who was a playwright and a big influencer back in the 1930s. And in his writings, they were scary because he talked about having a commission, sort of like the IRS. And this commission would be set up where when you reached a certain age, you would have to present yourself to this commission and convince them that you still had purpose in life. And there was a reason for you to continue to populate the earth. No fooling, folks. Read it. It's there. And his statement was, there are just some people in our society that needs to be eliminated. They're using up resources and things, and they have no purpose anymore, so we just need to eliminate them. Now, think about that for a minute. Now, we've had Kevorkian. We talked about euthanasia earlier. We have abortion. We kill babies in the world, and all these things going on. Where do you think that thinking came from? This Fabian side. Now, George Orwell, another great influencer, he was involved in this, but it didn't say a lot about him. It just said once he figured out what they were about, he departed. He eliminated and resigned from being part of it. And it's funny, when you look up the Fabian Society, their coat of arms is a wolf in sheep's clothing. That is their coat of arms. So think about that for a minute. I don't know what you're thinking, but, when I read some of this stuff, it was really amazing. Now, after I read this a few years ago, this was part of the research for my new book, The Family Money Farm, the CFO Project, which you can get for free if you go to CFO-project.com. That's CFO, Chief Financial Officer, CFO-project.com. Put in your name and email address, and you will get an email with a link in it that will allow you to download both of my books. One of them is The Family Money Farm, the CFO Project, and the other one is Financial Mastery Coaching, the Blueprint. And so we've talked about that. Now, why do we think the way we think today, and why are so many people in a world of mess with finances? And we're going to come back. We're going to take a break real quick, and we're going to come back and take a deep dive into the $16 billion that was spent in this omnibus bill of $1.7 trillion the government just spent of yours and my money.
Children are the future, and your future career begins at Life Steps Early Education Center, hiring child care assistants and preschool teachers for full-time, part-time, or substitute positions. Life Steps offers 100% paid health, dental, and vision premiums for full-time staff, making a difference in the lives of children for nearly 100 years. Call Life Steps today at 724-283-1010 or visit lifesteps.net. That's lifesteps.net to find out more. Life Steps is an equal opportunity employer.
Wintertime is when performance matters the most. That's because water can turn to ice. This is the Aquaman of Beaver County, Jim Riggio from the Beaver Falls Municipal Authority. Whether it's fighting off the evils of underground pipes freezing or taking an extra shift on the ice during a power play, me and my team know how to react when it's on the line. From sinks to rinks, if it needs water this winter, you know you can depend on the Aquamen and women of Beaver Falls Municipal Authority. Click bfwater.net.
The best of Beaver County is easy to discover. It's right here on your radio. Tune in Beaver County Radio or watch the best of Beaver County live on Facebook or YouTube video this and every Thursday from 11 to 11:30. The program is made possible by St. Barnabas, For over 3 years now, the show has been dedicated to shining light on the great things going on right here in your neighborhood and the people that are making it happen. This Thursday, enjoy conversation and insight from an intriguing lineup of guests who are creating excitement and having an impact right here in Beaver County. Your friends and neighbors at St. Barnabas are pleased to support the best of Beaver County. The radio broadcast will also be replayed each week from 11:30 to noon on Sundays on Beaver County Radio. Archived Best of Beaver County videos can be viewed on the WBVP WMBA Facebook page. It's your chance to encounter the best of Beaver County with host Mike Romai this Thursday starting at 11. For more information, visit beavercountyradio.com. In 1948, there were two major historical events. Alban S. Barkley was appointed Vice President of the United States, and WBVP began broadcasting. These days, nobody remembers much about Truman's vice president, but Beaver County Radio is going strong and now entering our 75th year.
Hey, we're back, and let's round this thing out. And we were talking about the Fabian Society and education, and really what education does, in my mind, it helps create an atmosphere that young people carry around and develop throughout their lifetime as they are exposed to influencers in their life. And this Fabian Society I was talking about has become a big, big influence, I believe, in a lot of people's lives. Just look around at what's going on. And those of you that are chronologically gifted like I am, looking out there and looking at what's going on, and you really start to question and say, what's happening? You know, what's really going on? And the next segment, let me talk about a little bit. We're going to talk about deep dive into the $16 billion in omnibus earmarks. Now, what is that? Some of you may know what that is. Well, the Congress, even after the election and the Republicans took over, right before January, the Democrats pushed through this $1.7 trillion bill. It had 6,000 pages. How long would it take you, Matt, to read 6,000 pages? And it says here that, nobody really got to do it. And $750,000 for gender non-conforming housing in New York. $1 million for Rock and Roll Hall of Fame Museum in Ohio. $3.6 million for a Michelle Obama trail in Georgia. $5 million for a salmon reintroduction project in Washington State out of this $1.7 trillion bill. And this is interesting because I believe that what goes on in Washington, the politicians, and we're going to get into that, is really about influence. People that they run for an election against somebody else and they win. Now, what does that mean in their mind? Now, be a politician for a minute. If you don't have, this is just pretend, folks. Just pretend. You're a politician and you just won the election. Now, what would that do to the 6 inches between your ears? Would that not give you some confidence in your thinking and what you're doing and on and on and on? But at the same time, because you won that election, it's like the winners of the Olympics that get gold medals and everything. We tend to look up to those people. They become influencers in our life. And if you think about the government and the debt of what's going on, and that's going to be part of our next segment, we're going to talk about debt, the Federal Reserve, and some politics in the next segment. But I just really wanted to set that up so that we can get our thinking right. And some of the things, debate over earmarks. Pat Murray, Democrat in Washington, the second-ranking Democrat on the Senate Appropriations Committee, who secured more than $230 million in earmarked funds for his state. Now, Tom's opinion, this is my opinion, what are earmarks? Earmarks are politicians that get money to go home, $1 million here, $500,000, $750,000, and they take them home for these organizations in their territory, in their constituency. And oh, by the way, here's your check for $1 million, Matt, and you're going to support me in my reelection, correct? So you wonder how much of that money that came home in earmarks ends up back in the political wallet or the political funds of that politician. And I mean, we have the greatest political system in the world, bar none. And I mean that with my heart. I don't want it to go away. I don't want it to change. But somewhere, somehow, we have to make some rule changes on how things are going to happen in the future. Because truthfully, we are currently on the treadwheel of destruction. We are on a bullet train going down the track, and the bridge is out. Now, where's the bridge out? I don't know. I'm not predicting when it's going to happen. But somewhere in the future, there is a crash coming, because there is currently 31 point something, almost $32 trillion of debt that the government is holding. And that is about $250,000 per taxpayer, about $80,000-$90,000 per person in America is that debt. Now, the other one is the unfunded liability. Now, what is unfunded liability? The amount right now is approaching $173 trillion. That is a number that you and I can't comprehend. The politicians don't understand it. Anybody making decisions about our money no longer, have any control over what's going on. And folks, that's $1.6 million leveraged liability on your future as a taxpayer in America. Let's take a break. We're going to go to the news, and then we'll be back to talk more about the debt, cryptocurrency, and politics.
Did you know that facial expression, body language, and voice inflection account for almost 70% of how the spoken word is interpreted? How you appear, how clearly you can speak, and how confident you are when you smile, eat, and talk can impact almost every aspect of your life. Regular dental care from St. Barnabas Dental in Beaver affects much more than just your teeth. Even sleeping patterns can be improved with oral care from St. Barnabas Dental. Dr. Henry Windle and Dr. Jason Stracola offer life-changing solutions by restoring dental health, function, and appearance. Proper expression and greater overall life enjoyment start with the team at St. Barnabas Dental. Call St. Barnabas Dental, located on Tuscaroras Road in Brighton Township, at 724-495-3350. It's dental care that's apart from the ordinary. Click stbarnabashealthsystem.com.
What is dedication?
I am the father of a 9-year-old little girl and a 6-year-old little boy, and I find fatherhood both relentlessly challenging and relentlessly rewarding. My daughter is biological and my son is adopted. I love them both so much. From the morning when you wake up to putting them to bed at night and every moment in between, it really is so special, and boy, is it exhausting. One thing that I fear about being a parent is the future for my children. I think a parent's job is to protect our children, but also prepare them for the world so they become good, kind human beings. But I'm also hopeful that the future holds a more inclusive and compassionate world for them.
That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
St. Barnabas thanks you for listening to Beaver County Radio.
Beaver County Radio's news source, 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com. Here's Curtis Walsh.
Good morning. We can expect mostly cloudy skies today with a high near 42. We'll have a complete Beaver County radio weather forecast after this look at news. The new Brighton Area School District has hired 2 new employees. Matt Durzik has further details on that and more from Monday night's school board meeting.
A special voting meeting was held by the New Brighton Area School Board at their first meeting of 2023 on Monday night. At that meeting, the board unanimously approved the hiring of Kara Stormfels as a business office secretary for the school district and Nick Long as the director of student services. Several items were submitted for approval at the regular committee meeting that followed, including the finalized approval for the 2023-24 high school curriculum handbook, the purchase of a new PA system in the New Brighton Middle School, and the hirings of 2 staff members along with 15 coaches for varsity and middle school track, varsity baseball, varsity softball, and varsity and middle school volleyball. The items submitted at the committee meeting will be voted on at the second meeting later this month. The full story can be found at beavercountyradio.com. From New Brighton, I'm Matt Durzik for Beaver County Radio News.
We have confirmed that the lost cow that found its way to Green Garden Plaza in Aliquippa Friday night has made it home. Hopewell police responded to the cow wandering through the parking lot and managed to contact the owner, who eventually got him home. The 2023 Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Day commemoration, hosted by the Midland Women's Civic Club, will take you back through time to one of the most significant events in American civil rights history, the 1963 March on Washington. The presentation will feature dialogue from Miss Rutha Mae Harris, an original freedom singer, and local residents who marched with Dr. King that day. The moderator is Beaver Falls native and prominent Messiah University Vice President for Diversity Affairs and Professor of Communication, Dr. Todd Allen. The public is welcome and encouraged to access the presentation free of charge on Monday, January 16th at 1 p.m. at Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center's YouTube channel. The leadership team of the Pennsylvania House Republican Caucus, in which County Representative Josh Kell acts as Policy Committee Chairman, made a statement on the announcement of House recess and the canceling of previously announced special session days for the remainder of the week. They say that the House Republican Caucus was at the Capitol all day, ready to work and organize both special session and regular House sessions, and had rolls, votes, and were ready to proceed with the people's business. They find it disappointing that the most basic organizational issues continue to obstruct the work of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. The caucus hopes they can proceed in regular session with rules that receive engagement from both caucuses and with the well-being of the people of Pennsylvania and not individual interests as their first priority. The White House is moving forward with a proposal that would lower student debt payments for millions of Americans now and in the future. It's offering a new route to repay federal loans under far more generous terms. President Joe Biden announced the plan in August, but it was overshadowed by his sweeping plan to stash or eliminate student debt for 40 million Americans. Education Department officials on Tuesday called the new plan a student loan safety net that'll prevent borrowers from getting overloaded with debt. The Democratic president is moving forward with the repayment plan, even as his one-time debt cancellation faces an uncertain fate before the Supreme Court.
Here's the Beaver County forecast on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Today's forecast is calling for mostly cloudy skies with a high near 42. We'll have partly cloudy skies tonight going down to a low of 29. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a high near 48. Showers on Thursday with a high of 55 and a chance of rain and some snow on Friday with a high of 38. Here on this Tuesday, January the 10th, 2023, we're at 30 degrees with partly sunny skies in Beaver County. That's a look at the news for now. I'm Curtis Walsh on 99.3 FM, 95.7 FM, 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming live around the world at beavercountyradio.com.
Where the listeners of Beaver County have a voice. Teleforum with Eddy Crow, 724-843-1888, 724-774-1888.
Hey, we're back. And man, some interesting stuff. I'd love to hear from you. What are your thoughts about the concepts and the topics that we're talking about? You know, the $1.7 trillion omnibus bill that's supposedly to fund the government between now and next year. You know, it really comes down to that influence. You know, in the news, Matt and I were talking about influence. You know, when you look at the debt of the government and everything going on, do you think that has an influence over you and how you manage your money? When you look at the government borrowing and borrowing and borrowing and borrowing to the tune of $1.6 million per taxpayer, that's your liability, that's your debt. Not the government's, not the politicians, That's your debt. And the politicians put us here. This isn't you and I. It's the politicians that are putting us here. So if you're okay with that, that's what it is. Here's a cut. President who warned Americans what extravagant federal spending would do to character. And this is Grover Cleveland. He was a man who said what he meant and meant what he said. He'll come hell or high water. Now, the things that he said, now, this is interesting, and I'm going to make a point here, because he was in the presidency from 1885 to 1889. Then he lost to Harrison. 4 years later, he ran again after Harrison run the country into the ground. And then he was president again from 1993 to 1997. Now think with me for a moment, folks. Let's just step back and forget about conspiracy theories for a minute. Trump was right. My opinion, he was president for 4 years. So whatever and however it happened, he didn't win based on what they're saying, okay? 4 years later, I think there's a high probability that he'll be back again to fix what our current president is screwing up and going on. But I just wanted to point that out. When I read this, it was interesting. He was president 4 years, lost, and 4 years later, he's back as president again. And what he talked about is he talked about managing money and the government being in debt and spending money. A malign condition which threatens us, an evil that he saw as calamitous and destructive to our national character and dignity. And that was the government spending money, and that was the war. Now, this thing that's going on in today we're talking about, guess what? It has gone on in the past. And you know the old saying that I remember people saying, history repeats itself? Well, when are we going to wake up and realize that history repeats itself and things that are going on? I remember back in the 80s, Jimmy Carter, 1979, 1980, inflation supposedly hit 15.6 in 1979 or 1980. The Fed stepped in and they took two items out of the relative basket of goods that were used to determine inflation. At that time, there were 13 segments of the marketplace that were used to determine the rate of inflation. So the 80s come upon us, inflation skyrocketed because of government spending, what Jimmy Carter was doing, and therefore the Federal Reserve stepped in. Now, I don't know, some of you are chronologically gifted enough, I know Matt wouldn't know this, but in 1981, prime interest rate went to 21.5. So if you were a business and you had a business loan, a prime plus business loan, you were paying 24, 25% interest on debt at that time. You needed a mortgage to buy a house. A 30-year fixed rate mortgage was 16%. However, you could go down and get a bank loan or a CD at the bank, and they would pay you 16% interest, 10 years compounded. Man, what a life it was. And I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but during the decade of the 80s, a lot of things was going on because of inflation. And they continued to raise the interest rates because the Fed believed that was the only way to control interest rates. So bring me forward to today. And guess what? The Feds are raising the interest rates, aren't they? Well, how much are they going to have to raise the interest rates in order to actually have an impact on the rate of inflation? If we look at history, and back in the 80s, prime rate went to 21.5. And there are economists out there. I read an article yesterday, 60% of the economists are saying that 2023 is going to be a recession, a deep recession. Some of them say it isn't going to happen until 24. But the Fed's already said they're going to continue to raise interest rates till they get control of what's going on. They may not raise them as fast as they already have, but they're going to continue to raise the interest rates. Now, what does that really mean, raising the interest rates? Who wins in this raising the interest rates resource? Well, they raise interest rates, so businesses find it more expensive to borrow money to expand and buy inventory, blah, blah, blah. Businesses slow down, people get laid off. But let's take it deeper. Let's go deeper than that and say, okay, the Federal Reserve prints money from nothing and they loan it out. Agreed? That's a fact. And the Federal Reserve is not government anyway. It is all privately owned institutions around the world. There is no government intervention or oversight over the Federal Reserve. So they've printed all this money, but we have given them control. So their job is to control the economy, to control the money in the marketplace, et cetera. So they're owed trillions of dollars in debt. And they raised the interest rate on the debt. No, wait a minute. I'm having a problem with this. Who's winning in this current way that they're handling inflation? If we raise the interest rate, doesn't that mean they get more interest on their debt? See, I believe in things I've read that the Federal Reserve around the world is in trouble because they have printed and loaned out more money than can ever be paid back. Do you think America could pay back and accumulate resources to pay the $2.3 trillion of debt and unfunded liability? Do you think that's really possible? What's our revenue? The revenue to the federal government this past 12 months is like $4.6 trillion. Our government spent $6 trillion and took in $4.6 trillion revenue. I don't know, folks. Let me put that in perspective for you. That's like having a $46,000 a year annual income. But you spent $60,000 last year. Now, how would you do that? You would have had to create some more debt, right? You would have had to borrow money. Well, how many years in a row do you think you could actually do that? Let's get some real perspective, folks, because we have got to get ripped and angry because the politicians are using us. This is a game that is beyond you and I to even consider or think about. And they say, oh, that can't be, and on and on and on. But this thing that the Federal Reserve has got going on and the way that they're spending money and borrowing money and loaning money out and printing money from nothing has been going on for years. If you want to read a great book, it's called, the title of the book is The Creature of Jekyll Island. And that goes back to 1913 when the Federal Reserve was created. There was a group of very wealthy, billionaire-type people from around the world came to Jekyll Island, which is a resort off the coast of Georgia. And in the story, they talked about some of these people came dressed as hobos, so people would not know who they were. So they had this clandestine meeting in off the coast of Georgia on Jekyll Island, and the purpose was to create what I call the banking cartel. Now, doesn't that sound a little different than the Federal Reserve? And it ended up with the name Federal Reserve, and I believe that because of that, most people, they just believe it's part of the federal government in some way, but there is nothing federal about it. So if you want a good read, Creature of Jekyll Island, and it's the story of how the Federal Reserve was created in America. Let's take a break, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk about digital currency.
Children are the future, and your future career begins at Life Steps Early Education Center, hiring child care assistants and preschool teachers for full-time, part-time, or substitute positions. Life Steps offers 100% paid health, dental, and vision premiums for full-time staff, making a difference in the lives of children for nearly 100 years. Call Life Steps today at 724-283-1010 or visit lifesteps.net. That's lifesteps.net to find out more. Life Steps is an equal opportunity employer.
Sometimes the holidays can last a little too long, but usually it's no big deal if you discover leftover fruitcake in your refrigerator, even if it's after Memorial Day. You just toss it out and move on with life. This is Pat Travail from Freedom United Federal Credit Union. On the other hand, high interest charges from store credit cards can really start to stink too. The fact is, if you don't deal with it now, you might still have some of this year's Christmas rotting away your budget like a cookie tray that's been left uncovered far into next year. Make plans to visit Freedom United and ask about our 6.99% Visa card balance transfer special with approved credit. Good on new money balance transfers only. Don't miss out. Starting February 1st, consolidate all those other high-rate bills into one low payment. Don't let the holidays linger. Throw the high-rate cards out with the eggnog that's gone bad as well. Visit Freedom United Federal Credit Union, member NCUA, equal housing lender.
Hey, it's time to wake up, Beaver Valley. Hi, this is Pastor David Grove from the Church of the Redeemed of Beaver Valley. After over 2 years on the air, it seems that some of you still cannot get up in time. So I've got good news. Wake Up Beaver Valley is moving to a new time, now airing from 9 to 10, this and every Saturday morning. It's time to wake up and turn our hearts back to the cross of Jesus Christ. So I invite you to wake up early this Saturday. To find out more, it's Wake Up Beaver Valley, Saturdays from 9 until 10 a.m. on Beaver County Radio. God bless you.
This is Chuck Wilson speaking to you. This broadcast is sent your way as a public service of the Jones and Lockland Field.
In our first 75 years, Beaver County Radio has had over 400 employees, 10 owners, 9 of the coolest station vehicles ever, and 1 radio station cat. Who knows what the next 75 years will bring? It's the Diamond Anniversary year of 99.3 FM. 95.7 FM, WBVP and WMVA.
Hey man, we're hot and on fire today. You know, it just the conversation, and I hope you're enjoying the conversation. And what I challenge you to do is I challenge you to do some research. You know, the stuff that I'm talking about here, I don't believe very many people really know about it or what's really going on. Matt and I were talking about this Klaus guy who's head of the New World Order, the Economic Forum, the World Economic Forum, and the things, and they were talking about depopulation and you know, oh, this guy's crazy on the radio. Tom Young, he doesn't know what he's talking about. No, I challenge you, do some resources, do some research on your own in what we're talking about. We were talking about the Federal Reserve and their ability to print money from nothing and then loan it out. And we were talking about the Federal Reserve's control of inflation is to raise interest rates. Now, in the big picture, I guess that slows everybody down, stops people from spending money and everything else, but it also devalues our money by the printing of money. And right now, our politicians are trying to blame Putin and Russia and Ukraine and all these other reasons for our inflation, and it's all a flat-out lie, because inflation, pure and simple, comes from an increase of the money supply. It is a simple concept. If you own stock in XYZ company, that you have the company issued 1,000 shares of stock, and you own 100 shares of stock, so you own 10% of the company. Well, if they come out with a new issue, another 1,000 shares to raise money for the corporation, your percentage of ownership went from 10% to 5%, unless you buy another 100 shares of stock. So what happened to the value of your shares of stock that you originally owned, where your percentage of ownership of the company went from 10% ownership of the company to 5% ownership of the company? That's exactly the same concept that happens with the Federal Reserve printing money today. They print money from nothing, and it devalues the currency that you and I have. And my problem with what's going on, and we're going to get into this, we're going to get into government spending here in a minute, but we have to take back control of our country, because it is so far out there right now. And well, how do we do that? I'm not going to get into that today on how we take control of the country. It is about voting. And just this last week, what happened? We saw the new Congress with the Republican majority, as small as the majority is, but their first goal was to vote in the Speaker. And Kevin McCarthy was determined to become the Speaker. But there were 20 people. Now, who were these 20 people? I don't know them. I don't know personally, but what I understand is they were MAGA people. What's MAGA people, Tom? That's making America great. In other words, America first is the thinking behind these 20 politicians that are new people in Congress, and they were going to stand out and they were going to withhold their vote until there was some concessions in changing some of the rules on just exactly what we're sitting here talking about today, about how to spend the money of the federal government. Because realistically, the Congress has control of the purse strings. So they can control how things are funded. And the first thing they did yesterday, if I understand it, what I heard last night, is they passed a rule to eliminate funding for the 87,000 new IRS agents that originally it was talked about that they were going to go after the wealthy people. I don't know why they needed 87,000 more when you figure out all the audits that are actually done. And now it is revealed that they are actually after you and I, the average everyday person looking for those nickels and dimes to cover their spending because they are irresponsible. They are spending money irresponsibly, and their ability to say no to spending in ways that do not benefit people, and they're just frivolous ways, like some of the earmarks we were talking about earlier in our program. Now, the newest thing on the block is the Federal Reserve is talking about digital currency. Now, this is different. This is not crypto. Cryptocurrency is something different. You got Bitcoin and this FTX guy, this Freed guy, that just went bankrupt to the tune of billions of dollars, and he had scarfed off millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars of that in wealth. I don't know how you do that. This guy, I don't know how many people are going to get any money back out of this deal at all, but we now know that he was dripping tens of millions of dollars to the Democratic Party in what was going on. So there is so much under the carpet. It's like, you lived in a house for a long time, and all of a sudden you decide to replace the flooring. And you start pulling up the carpeting, and you wonder, how the heck did all that dirt get under the carpeting? There it is. And you pull the carpeting up. My Lord, where did all this dirt come from? We run the sweeper on the carpet all the time. We had a housekeeper. Somebody cleaned the house, but the dirt is still there. And that's what we're looking at. Now, digital currency, the impact of the digital currency could be profound, because what it really means is the Federal Reserve is going to move to a digital currency, which means you're going to have points. So instead of dollars, you're going to have points and fraction of points. That's my opinion. From what I've read, this is just my opinion. However, it is said that this digital currency would give them complete control to follow every dollar you spend. Wherever you are, wherever you're spending your money, they would know what you spent and how much you spent. They would be in complete control of taxes. So why do we need IRS if this digital currency is there? Because other than the underground economy, now, anybody ever heard that term before? The underground economy? It has always been there. That's that cash economy that's out there that they're looking to get. So those are people, I have a babysitter and I pay her in cash. Well, the kid doesn't fill out a tax return, so guess what? That was money that was under the radar. So there was an underground economy everywhere. But digital currency gives the government, the Federal Reserve, the government, to ability to track every dollar you spend and then control how you would spend it. So they would know. You have digital currency, it's all computer operated, so it would be just like, the driverless automobiles. How does that happen? It's all controlled by computers and AI, artificial intelligence. So if you heard anything about Elon Musk lately and what's going on there, he said the greatest fear of the future is artificial intelligence. And they have robots. Now, I've seen a couple of these examples. This woman that looks like a woman and talks like a woman, has mannerisms and movements, and it's amazing. So this is like, when I was a kid, I don't know, those of you remember Buck Rogers. Matt, you wouldn't remember Buck Rogers, but Buck Rogers was in the 50s, okay? When I was a little 6-year-old, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old. Buck Rogers was a show, and Buck Rogers was outer space. And when you watched it on TV, every once in a while, you would get a glimpse of the silver wire that was hanging, this rocket was hanging by. And that was in the 1950s. Well, don't we have rockets today, Matt? Flying around the world and hypersonic and all these things going on. So digital currency is something to be afraid of. We have a telephone call, so let's answer the phone. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, Tom.
Yes, sir.
Len Rainier, how you doing?
Hello, Len Rainier, my friend. I was hoping that you would get my message and call in today. We're having a hoot of a time for 3 hours talking about everything from health and fitness to money to religion to politics and just talking about the Federal Reserve and digital currency. And
you're going to be a tired man.
Now let me ask you a favor. We got about 3 minutes to the news, and we're going to go to the news for about 8-10 minutes. Can you hang on and come back after the news? I would really love to bring you onto the show for what I'm talking about.
That'll be fine, Tom.
That'll be fine. So tell the audience a little bit about you, Len. Give me your background, what you do, and how you got here.
Well, I've been in the financial services business for almost 40 years, so I started when I was really young, I'd like to think.
Okay.
But over the past 20 years, we've been starting to take a look at the thought processes behind traditional financial thinking and all of the other elements that people cling on to for their financial futures. And what we have to understand is that the challenge today many Americans are facing are not complicated product issues. They're complicated everyday issues. Inflation, healthcare, education, the political environment, and, the cost of mandates and the constant state of crisis adds to the stress that everybody has. And Tom, for many in the United States, for the first time, many Americans are starting to realize that they're not in control of the outcomes in their lives. And they have a gut feeling that they're not prepared financially and realize there's no financial certainty that they can rely on. The problem is, Tom, to master the financial solutions, you must first master the challenges that will destroy the solution. So over my past 20 years, we've been talking to people. We've formed an institute to bring this information to the public, to better protect them against the follies of some of the traditional thinking and the traditional thought processes that have been served up to the public for the last 20 to 30 years. My background, we do economic studies here at the Institute, and we've had 5 books on the publisher's bestsellers list. I was fortunate enough a few years ago to speak in front of the Federal Reserve of Chicago. And so we've met with economists, we've met with the industry, and we looked at overall to give the public a snapshot of what's really going on in their financial future. And they're amazed.
That's Len, you and I have been friends a long, long time, and you are one of my mentors in life, and I'm so glad you called. Now we're gonna go to a break, then we're gonna go to the news. So just hang in there, and I'll bring you back because I want to talk about digital currency and the direction of the World Economic Forum and what's going on. And I know you have a lot of information about that. So hang on there.
All right. Mm-hmm.
Perspective can be everything. How you think about things influences what you perceive to be true. Join attorney and author Rocco Koza along with realtor and podcaster Eric McKenna for How We See It every Saturday on Beaver County Radio starting at 10:30 a.m. Nothing heavy, nothing political, just lively, entertaining, and informative discussion on many popular topics. Listen on Beaver County Radio or watch the video stream on Facebook and YouTube. Get a new perspective every Saturday by tuning into How We See It, 10:30 to 12:30 on Beaver County Radio.
Beaver County Radio, 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA. You're listening to 95.7 FM, 99.3 FM, presented by St. Barnabas, in addition to 1230 WBVP Beaver Falls and 1460 WMBA Ambridge.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. It's job one for first responders in flood-ravaged California.
We need to get everyone out of the area. It's a higher ground.
to a place of safety.
Ventura County Fire Captain Brian McGrath on ABC 7 Los Angeles. There have been high water rescues, numerous evacuations as a parade of deadly storms continues to march across California from north to south, bringing devastating flooding. President Biden was quick to label former President Trump as irresponsible over his handling of sensitive government documents. Well, now questions being raised over Mr. Biden's handling of the very same kind of paperwork.
A number of documents with classified markings were discovered as Biden's personal attorneys were clearing out the offices of the Penn Biden Center, where the president kept an office after he left the vice presidency in 2017 until shortly before he launched his 2020 presidential campaign in 2019. The documents were found on November 2nd, 2022 in a locked closet in the office.
Correspondent Keith Peters says the Justice Department is looking into it. The North American Leaders Summit wrapping up in Mexico City today.
After meeting one-on-one with Mexico's president yesterday, President Biden holds bilateral talks with the Canadian Prime Minister today. All three leaders met for dinner with their spouses last night, and the three will hold formal talks this afternoon before concluding the summit. The agenda has included immigration, security, trade, and combating illegal drug trafficking.
White House correspondent Greg Clugston. The newly led Republican House passing a rules package that proponents say will restore the People's House, providing more transparency and assuring that conservative legislation will make it to the floor for a vote in the House. Watching Wall Street, stocks in positive territory at the moment. Right now, the Dow is up 71 points, the Nasdaq ahead 19, and the S&P trading 4 points higher. More on these stories at townhall.com.
You know that your dollar doesn't go as far as it used to. At Key City Capital, we know that as well and would like you to know about investments we believe can make sense in an inflationary environment. For more details, check us out at keycitycapital.com. Key City offers passive investments in cash-flowing real estate that can help offer a hedge against inflation and stock market volatility. When prices rise, more couples and families further delay homeownership. Key City Capital owns thousands of rental units with attractive prospects for income and appreciation as more and more renters apply to live in their communities. Let the team at Key City Capital grow your wealth and diversify your investment portfolio. Connect with them today at keycitycapital.com or call 817-912-1569, 817-912-1569. Again, that's keycitycapital.com or call 817-912-1569, 817-912-1569.
China has stopped issuing visas for South Koreans, retaliation for what Beijing describes as discriminatory anti-COVID measures imposed on Chinese travelers.
China's angry because it says that those policies are only applied to travelers from China, when really the Omicron variant of COVID is being passed around about 70 countries at the moment. And so it's complaining that this is just going to amplify anti-Asian hate. What's I find interesting, though, is that it's only imposed these retaliatory measures against South Korea and Japan. It has very testy relationships with both of those countries. So it's going to be interesting to see if it rolls out more retaliatory measures.
The BBC's Celia Hatton. Islam's annual Hajj pilgrimage in Saudi Arabia will return to pre-pandemic levels this year after restrictions saw the annual religious commemoration curtailed over concerns about the coronavirus. News and analysis, townhall.com. Authorities make an arrest in a shooting at a New Mexico official's home.
Police in Albuquerque, New Mexico say one suspect is in custody and a firearm has been seized in connection with at least one of the recent shootings at or near the homes or offices of several elected officials. The shootings have been happening since early December. No one has been injured. One home targeted is that of Albuquerque Democrat Javier Martinez, the incoming Speaker of the State House. The attacks come amid a rise in threats to members of Congress, school board members, election officials, and other government workers around the nation. I'm Norman Hall.
Tough times for this brick and mortar retailer. Bed Bath & Beyond's fiscal third quarter sales plunged 33% as the home goods company works on striking the right balance with its shoppers. Last week, Bed Bath & Beyond cautioned that it may need to file for bankruptcy protection. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Beaver County Radio's news source, 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com. Here's Curtis Walsh.
Good morning. We can expect mostly cloudy skies today with a high near 42. We'll have a complete Beaver County radio weather forecast after this look at news. 3 people were arrested by Aliquippa police after a brawl in West Aliquippa. Here's Beaver County Radio News correspondent Sandy Giordano with the details.
Justin Lee Carr, 28, reported his vehicle had been stolen last Monday in Aliquippa. Later that afternoon, he phoned police using obscenities to inform him that he found his car behind a police station. He hung up according to the criminal complaint. The officer called him back and he used loud obscenities again. Police went to his address, 419 Allegheny Avenue, and ran the vehicle's registration, and it was reported stolen. 2 other individuals, Monica McCutcheon and Thayon Lewis, arrived on scene, confronting officers, loudly yelling, screaming, and threatening them, and refusing to comply with police commands. Lewis threw a punch at Officer Paul Woods as police were attempting to restrain him. According to Officer Bruce Tuch's statement, McCutcheon shoved Officer Woods, jumped on his back, and continued throwing more punches. Officer Tuch grabbed McCutcheon and restrained her hold on Officer Woods. Lewis continued punching and pushing Officer Woods, and Sergeant Nicholas Durego and Woods were able to maneuver around him, placing him on the ground and eventually restraining him. Sergeant Durego restrained McCutcheon and placed her under arrest. Officer Woods was treated at the scene by firefighters for multiple lacerations. Carr was charged with disorderly conduct and is in the Beaver County Jail following arraignment. His bond is set at $5,000. McCutcheon is charged with aggravated assault, resisting arrest, other law enforcement, obstruction of administrative law, other government functions, as is Lewis, charged with the same offenses. Bond for McCutcheon and Lewis is set at $150,000 each. This is Sandy Giordano reporting for Beaver County Radio.
The 2023 Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day commemoration, hosted by the Midland Women's Civic Club, will take you back through time to one of the most significant events in American civil rights history, the 1963 March on Washington. The presentation will feature dialogue from Miss Rutha Mae Harris, an original freedom singer, and local residents who marched with Dr. King that day. The moderator is Beaver Falls native and prominent Messiah University Vice President for Diversity Affairs and Professor of Communication, Dr. Todd Allen. The public is welcome and encouraged to access the presentation free of charge on Monday, January 16th at 1 p.m. at Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center's YouTube channel. The New Brighton Area School District has hired 2 new employees. Matt Derzik has further details on that and more from Monday night's school board meeting.
A special voting meeting was held by the New Brighton Area School Board at their first meeting of 2023 on Monday night. At that meeting, the board unanimously approved the hiring of Kara Stormfels as a business office secretary for the school district and Nick Long as the director of student services. Several items were submitted for approval at the regular committee meeting that followed, including the finalized approval for the 2023-24 high school curriculum handbook, the purchase of a new PA system in the New Brighton Middle School, and the hirings of 2 staff members along with 15 coaches for varsity and middle school track, varsity baseball, varsity softball, and varsity and middle school volleyball. The items submitted at the committee meeting will be voted on at the second meeting later this month. The full story can be found at beavercountyradio.com. From New Brighton, I'm Matt Derzik for Beaver County Radio News.
We have confirmed the lost cow that found its way to Green Garden Plaza in Aliquippa Friday night has made it home. Hopewell police responded to the cow wandering through the parking lot and managed to contact the owner, who eventually managed to get him home on the range. The leadership team of the Pennsylvania House Republican Caucus, in which County Representative Josh Kell acts as Policy Committee Chairman, made a statement on the announcement of House recess and the canceling of previously announced special session days for the remainder of the week. They say that the House Republican Caucus was at the Capitol all day, they had rolls, votes, and were ready to proceed with people's business. They find it disappointing that the most basic organizational issues continue to obstruct the work of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. The caucus hopes they can proceed in regular session with roles that receive engagement from both caucuses and with the well-being of the people of Pennsylvania and not individual interests as their first priority.
Here's the Beaver County forecast on 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Mostly cloudy skies today with a high near 42. Partly cloudy tonight going down to a low of 29. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a high near 48. Showers Thursday with a high near 55 and a chance of rain showers and a possible snow shower Friday with a high near 38. It's 34 degrees at 10 after 11 with partly sunny skies in Beaver County. That's a look at the news for now. I'm Curtis Walsh on 99.3 FM, 95.7 FM, 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming live around the world at beavercountyradio.com.
Now, it's time to talk on Teleforum on Beaver County Radio. 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, 99.3 FM, and beavercountyradio.com. And now, here is the host of the show, Eddy Crow.
Hey, here we are. We're back, and I'm Tom Young in for Eddy Crow today, and we have a caller, an old friend called Leonard Rainier. Leonard Rainier is head of Wealth and Wisdom Institute. I've known the man for 30-plus years, and he's a good friend and one of my mentors in my life. And Leonard, are you still there?
I am still here, Tom.
All right, sir. Now let's start. How do people get a hold of your books? Tell us, a couple of your books about your books, and how do they get a hold of them?
Well, you can go on to the basic Amazon portfolio and look at the books there. The books that are very important. The newest book called Double Jeopardy is a discussion about hiddenomics and the role of the government in your financial future. And it's very alarming. It's a book about awareness. I mean, it's a very simple thought process, Tom. How can people be aware of what they're not aware of? And if you're not, how do you prepare for your financial future if you're not aware of the elements that will tear that number down? Unfortunately, our industry centers all of its discussions around math, accumulation, and things like that. And let's agree on one thing. Math, when done properly, is always correct. But the problem is we use math in a very funny way in the industry. 20 years from now, even though the math will be correct, the elements around that math in our financial world have changed dramatically and will impact the ultimate results for our financial futures. And the big question is, what do you see and what don't you see in your financial future? The big question is, what don't you see? Because most of life's accidents and unintended consequences are the results of things that you don't see, not the things you do see. And the barriers in your financial life are determined in knowing only what you know and seeing only what you see. You're getting your information from 15-second sound bites on TV to 1 hour, prime time economic news. You get it from the media and everything else. But very seldom do they discuss the issues around the math 10, 20, and 30 years from now that will impact your retirement.
It's funny. We've talked, and I believe there are 4 rules. I want all your money, more ongoing, keep forever, and give back as little as possible, and that maximizes the benefits to the financial world, from banks to Wall Street to that end of it. So right now, the Federal Reserve is talking about introducing digital currency. What are your thoughts on digital currency, Len?
Well, we have to take a look at the elements in the marketplace and the economy first, because when I have a discussion about digital currency, the only way to measure its value is to convert it back into dollars. What will this number of shares of digital currency buy you today? And so it all goes back to the dollar. And we look at 2022 in a very rational way because we have to take a look at results. Last year, the Dow was a negative 8.78%. The S&P 500 was a negative 19.4%. The NASDAQ was a negative 33%. Corporate bonds were a negative 14%. Digital currency was down 60%. Where do you put your faith at?
It's interesting. The crypto and this Freed guy that just the FTX that went under. What are your thoughts behind this FTX in crypto?
Well, they're going to have trouble convincing a jury that he broke any regulations. He's a fraud, but since there's no real heavy regulations put on crypto, you know, he probably won't go to jail for any regulatory situations around crypto. Now, the government wants to get involved in crypto because, you know, if they can't tax it, it must be illegal. And once they start looking at the taxation and placing regulations, heavy regulations on the sales, and as we know, the compliance issues in dealing with this to the public, it's going to be a massive undertaking. Plus, it's really going to knock the excitement of crypto down to the excitement of the dollar. If they have no way of taxing it, they will never look at it very seriously. And so the government is very slow in moving the regulations on this. They're waiting to see how the world has reacted. But this latest saga of the fraud has put a big dent into it.
Do you think that the discussion of the Federal Reserve eliminating paper money and creating digital money, points, what do you think the banks, as we know them today, could possibly disappear?
Well, no, they will form into another element that will still be in control of the issues. That's why I'm saying they have to bring crypto down to where it's controllable like the dollar. The things that bother me about crypto, it's just like the chips they put in your cars, the chip that they put in your refrigerator. They know where your money is all the time. And in today's world, if you disagree with somebody, do they have the right to then freeze out your money or your shares for any particular purpose? And that's the dangerous part of electronic money and everything else. We're seeing little battles, not little ones, but we're seeing battles of people agreeing with each other or disagreeing, and it's become a political beach ball. And if you disagree with one group, well, they'll shut you down, and they will control your life or ruin it. But it's when we get involved into electronic money, I'm not in control of that. And just like I'm not in control of the value of the dollar, but I have other resources that I can look at and try to beef up the situation. Converting crypto into dollars will be what's left after the regulations and the taxation comes into play on those, because it will equal out to a currency. For the last 2 years, we've been under an era of practicing on the world economic framework. Since the pandemic, there's been a number of motions to put into control more government control in our lives and compliance in our lives, from things such as the mask all the way down to the way we spend our money and where our money's going and what we think, and the ideology of the world economy. I stated in my very first book that it would be very easy. It would be very easy for the world governments to take a look at the United States and say they're the problem, because we were very successful in the average world economy, and it was easier to bring down the United States standard of living to the rest of the world than the rest of the world bringing their standard up to the American public standards. So it's been a form of practicing on how to tear apart the leaders in the economy, and we're seeing a lot of action right now with China and everything else, and the amount of money we're spending is uncontrollable, just absolutely uncontrollable. And I don't care what system of currency or anything else that you're using, if you're going to be living in the United States, it comes down to the decisions made by a man or men that are causing the problem. I look at the situation we're in right now, and these are all man-made problems. And because they're being determined through regulation and taxation, and now control of the people inside of their countries. That's a much deeper explanation of it than simply saying, well, it's about math and this will be better and that will be better. It will be taxed.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, in America, there's 538 people control everything. The Supreme Court and all the legislators and the president and the vice president, 538, 540 people. And where we are today financially in America is their fault. They keep trying to make it look like it's your fault and my fault out here, but they made all the decisions. We elect the people we hope will make realistic decisions with integrity and character about running our country, and it's almost like they have sold out to what they're doing.
I sat on the board at Wayne State years ago. I sat at the board of Wayne State University School of Business, School of Finance, and I saw the ideology starting to leak in then. And it wasn't being, what was being taught was what to think and not how to think. And the rules for the new world economy, or as the popular political, the reset button, the reset of the way the world should be, started to leak in back then. And we're seeing a tremendous push to bring about a world economy that will be controlled by
a few.
Yeah, the elite. Yeah. And there's only three types of people in economic settings. There's the elite, the providers, and the recipients. And the elite is in total control of it. Their wealth will maintain and they've created two other sections, the recipients and the providers. And they put the poor people on the back of the providers just to scare the heck out of them and provide for all of the necessary things that the elite will pass on as gifts and things to the providers. And they end up paying for it. We're seeing this now. I mean, we're seeing that the debt in our country is overwhelming. And our ability as individuals to win this wicked, wicked game of trying to accumulate money for our retirement is very difficult.
Len, got to go. I thank you so much for calling today. Folks, this is Len Rainier. You can find his books on Amazon. I have them in supply in my office. You can contact me to get them. But I thank you so much for your time today, Len, and calling in. And we'll talk again real soon. God bless my friend.
You take care, Tom.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, folks, there it is. We're going to take a little bit of break here, and another half hour is about pretty much gone. We'll be back after the break.
You've been told you have neuropathy. Tired of the burning, numbness, tingling? Tri-State Neuropathy Centers in Beaver get results.
My legs were on fire from my toes to my knees. They were numb. I've gone to 46 doctors. I was desperate. Believe me, I was desperate. I would do anything to get better because my life wasn't the life I wanted. It's the first time I'm able to walk. I couldn't walk more than 3 or 4 steps. Now I can walk blocks.
And I went to doctors and they'd give me pills. My improvement has gone 60% and I'm on my way to 100%.
Don't listen to the neurologist when they tell you there's nothing that can be done. And once a nerve is dead, it's dead. Because there is something that can be done. I'm living proof of that.
Tri-State Neuropathy Centers. Suffering from neuropathy? Visit marydancedin.com or call 724-940-9000. That's 724-940-9000 for Tri-State Neuropathy Centers, serving the entire Beaver County area.
The best of Beaver County is easy to discover. It's right here on your radio. Tune in Beaver County Radio or watch the Best of Beaver County live on Facebook or YouTube video this and every Thursday from 11 to 11:30. The program is made possible by St. Barnabas. For over 3 years now, the show has been dedicated to shining light on the great things going on right here in your neighborhood and the people that are making it happen. This Thursday, enjoy conversation and insight from an intriguing lineup of guests who are creating excitement and having an impact right here in Beaver County. Your friends and neighbors at St. Barnabas are pleased to support the best of Beaver County. The radio broadcast will also be replayed each week from 11:30 to noon on Sundays on Beaver County Radio. Archived Best of Beaver County videos can be viewed on the WBVP WMBA Facebook page. It's your chance to encounter the best of Beaver County with host Mike Romai this Thursday starting at 11. For more information, visit beavercountyradio.com. Diamonds might be a girl's best friend, but the station that's been your ear's best friend since 1948 is celebrating its diamond anniversary year. Thanks for listening to Beaver County Radio.
Hey, we're back, and man, what a time it has flown by. We're down to the final minutes and then a half hour more. I think I have the most interesting information that we're going to talk about in the last half hour. And who would have ever thunk that the government would collude with big tech and control the narrative on Twitter, and that they would stop people from sharing information, Hunter Biden's laptop, and on and on and on. And I don't know, maybe you're not into any of that stuff, but it is really about our future, folks. I was so glad that Len Rainier had called in his book, the newest book, Double Jeopardy, about hiddenomics, is a must-read book. It is not a big, thick book, but Len Rainier, he makes such a point at the things that he talks about, and they are realistic and very simple. They are not complex in any other way. On top of the things in the next half hour, we're going to wrap up today. We're going to talk about the CCP. CCP, what's that, Tom? That's China. The China influence that is happening all around us in our country. I mean, who would have ever thought that the CCP would be allowed by our government to have their own police station in New York City? A China police station in New York City, where they can intimidate people that ran away from China to come here to find freedom, that all of a sudden we would allow them to open a police station in our country and allow them to intimidate and harass our U.S. citizens just because they are originally from China in what's going on. So we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about spying. We're going to talk about the FBI and the CIA and how they instrumentally kept information from you and I so that we could not make an intelligent, honest decision about who to vote for in the last couple of elections. Elon Musk purchased Twitter, and every day there is more and more information about emails and other things coming out that this is now the conspiracy theories of the last 6 years. The chicken has come home to roost, so that I don't remember the black preacher's name that said that years ago, but the chickens will come home to roost. And maybe it's time for the chickens to come home to roost. And maybe it's time, folks, for you and I to wake up, smell the roses, and figure out what's really going on that is really going to turn out to be yours and my detriment in the long term. And I think with that, we're about ready to go to the news. So here's the news. We'll be back in a few minutes.
Children are the future, and your future career begins at Life Steps Early Education Center, hiring child care assistants and preschool teachers for full-time, part-time, or substitute positions. Life Steps offers 100% paid health, dental, and vision premiums for full-time staff, making a difference in the lives of children for nearly 100 years. Call Life Steps today at 724-283-1010 or visit lifesteps.net. That's lifesteps.net to find out more. Life Steps is an equal opportunity employer.
It's always the right time to shop the Hopewell Shopping Center, no matter what the season, no matter what the reason. It's truly your neighborhood shopping place with such a large variety of businesses that offer food, shopping, fine dining and quick serving restaurants, personal services, and recreation. The Hopewell Shopping Center will be your one-stop for everything you need whenever you need it. Just click on beavercountyradio.com, the Hopewell Shopping Center merchant directory, for a complete look of merchants today, and get shopping at your neighborhood shopping place, the Hopewell Shopping Center.
It's the sound of Beaver County, presented by St. Barnabas, WBVP, WMBA, 99.3 FM, and now available on 95.7 FM. Beaver County Radio's news source. 95.7 and 99.3 FM, along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com. Here's Curtis Walsh.
Good morning. We can expect mostly cloudy skies today with a high near 42. We'll have a complete Beaver County radio weather forecast after this look at news. 3 people were arrested by Aliquippa police after a brawl in West Aliquippa. Here's Beaver County Radio News correspondent Sandy Giordano with the details.
Justin Lee, car 28, reported his vehicle had been stolen last Monday in Aliquippa. Later that afternoon, he phoned police using obscenities to inform him that he found his car behind a police station. He hung up according to the criminal complaint. The officer called him back and he used loud obscenities again. Police went to his address, 419 Allegheny Avenue, and ran the vehicle's registration, and it was reported stolen. 2 other individuals, Monica McCutcheon and Theon Lewis, arrived on scene, confronting officers, loudly yelling, screaming, and threatening them, and refusing to comply with police commands. Lewis threw a punch at Officer Paul Woods as police were attempting to restrain him. According to Officer Bruce Tuch's statement, McCutcheon shoved Officer Woods, jumped on his back, and continued throwing more punches. Officer Tuch grabbed McCutcheon and restrained her hold on Officer Woods. Lewis continued punching and pushing Officer Woods, and Sergeant Nicholas Durego and Woods were able to maneuver around him, placing him on the ground and eventually restraining him. Sergeant Durego restrained McCutcheon and placed her under arrest. Officer Woods was treated at the scene by firefighters for multiple lacerations. Carr was charged with disorderly conduct and is in the Beaver County Jail following arraignment. His bond is set at $5,000. McCutcheon is charged with aggravated assault, resisting arrest, other law enforcement, obstruction of administrative law, other government functions, as is Lewis, charged with the same offenses. Bond for McCutcheon and Lewis is set at $150,000 each. This is Sandy Giordano reporting for Beaver County Radio.
The 2023 Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day commemoration, hosted by the Midland Women's Civic Club, will take you back through time to one of the most significant events in American civil rights history, the 1963 March on Washington. The presentation will feature dialogue from Miss Rutha Mae Harris, an original freedom singer, and local residents who marched with Dr. King that day. The moderator is Beaver Falls native and prominent Messiah University Vice President for Diversity Affairs and Professor of Communication, Dr. Todd Allen. The public is welcome and encouraged to access the presentation free of charge on Monday, January 16th at 1 p.m. at Lincoln Park Performing Arts Center's YouTube channel. The New Brighton Area School District has hired 2 new employees. Matt Derzick has further details on that and more from Monday night's school board meeting.
A special voting meeting was held by the New Brighton Area School Board at their first meeting of 2023 on Monday night. At that meeting, the board unanimously approved the hiring of Kara Stormfels as a business office secretary for the school district and Nick Long as the director of student services. Several items were submitted for approval at the regular committee meeting that followed, including the finalized approval for the 2023-24 high school curriculum handbook, the purchase of a new PA system in the New Brighton Middle School, and the hirings of 2 staff members along with 15 coaches for varsity and middle school track, varsity baseball, varsity softball, and varsity and middle school volleyball. The items submitted at the committee meeting will be voted on at the second meeting later this month. The full story can be found at beavercountyradio.com. From New Brighton, I'm Matt Derzick for Beaver County Radio News.
We have confirmed the lost cow that found its way to Green Garden Plaza in Aliquippa Friday night has made it home. Hopewell police responded to the cow wandering through the parking lot and managed to contact the owner, who eventually managed to get him home on the range. The leadership team of the Pennsylvania House Republican Caucus, in which County Representative Josh Kell acts as Policy Committee Chairman, made a statement on the announcement of House recess and the canceling of previously announced special session days for the remainder of the week. They say that the House Republican Caucus was at the Capitol all day, they had rolls, votes, and were ready to proceed with people's business. They find it disappointing that the most basic organizational issues continue to obstruct the work of the Pennsylvania House of Representatives. The caucus hopes they can proceed in regular session with roles that receive engagement from both caucuses and with the well-being of the people of Pennsylvania and not individual interests as their first priority.
Here's the Beaver County forecast on 95.7 and 99.3 FM. along with 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming at beavercountyradio.com.
Mostly cloudy skies today with a high near 42. Partly cloudy tonight going down to a low of 29. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a high near 48. Showers Thursday with a high near 55 and a chance of rain showers and a possible snow shower Friday with a high near 38. It's 35 degrees with partly sunny skies in Beaver County here at 11:35 on this Tuesday, January the 10th of 2023. That's a look at the news for now. I'm Curtis Walsh on 99.3 FM, 95.7 FM, 1230 WBVP, 1460 WMBA, and streaming live around the world at beavercountyradio.com.
Talk about what's happening in Beaver County or around the world on Teleforum. 724-843-1888. 724-774-1888. It's Teleforum with Eddy Crow.
Hey, folks, we're back. This is Tom Young here in for Eddy Crow and having a ball. This last half hour, the last 25 minutes or so, here's your chance. We got open lines and anything you want to talk about. We've talked about a lot of things. We got a phone call, so let's take a phone call. Hello?
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Very good. I got a quick question. Do you have any idea in Sunday's Steelers game when Pat Fryermuth injured his knee or his leg, what the outcome of that injury was? Because I haven't seen anywhere.
No, you know what? I haven't either. I thought I heard that it wasn't severe. That was what I heard, but I mean, I didn't hear anything officially, but I understand that it wasn't severe. It was heartbreaking to watch that game and watch what Pickett's did. He has really grown as a quarterback, in my mind, to watch him through the beginning. And he literally learned how to control the ball and stop throwing interceptions those first couple of games. And it's just a shame that Miami come up with that field goal in the last minute of the game. So thanks for the call.
It is. I'm enjoying hearing you. I hope you'll be back again someday.
Thank you. Take care. I have the monthly show, 1 hour a month that I talk about finance, but this has been an experience, and I just like to bring the discussion of the world back to Beaver County. So anyway, we good? No more call. Okay, so let's move on and talk about this last 20 minutes. I want to talk about CCP. You know, the China problem, and you know, what don't you look at isn't made in China? I mean, I'm sitting here looking at the television monitor screen, Matt, and it's made in China, and so almost everything we look at is made in China, and China has really, I don't know how to describe it, but everything I'm reading about is they have had a long range plan to be the leader of the world. I think that's what their end game is going forward. And I want to bring up Mike Lindell, the pillow guy. I watched the 2-day symposium he did in 2021, and I watched and I listened, and I cannot in my own mind believe that all of those credentialed people that looked at all of that crypto, that all the code that moved around the world, and then the second one that he did, where they actually had the URL numbers of computers in China, the URL numbers in locations in the United States, and they had the PCAP, as they called it, the code that passed between all those computers. And I've watched in the last 2 years with really disheartening thoughts where they keep counting the ballots. And what I saw in that cyber symposium was the machines that everybody said, well, they're not connected to the internet, but I guess now they admit that all the motherboards and all those machines had a modem, a Wi-Fi modem on it, so they were connected to the internet in some way. So all of the things that we have been told in the last bunch of years about the elections, about what's going on, you know, I start to wonder, is it really true? And then that brings me to the headlines of the newspaper. And again, I'm talking about the Epoch Times. And if you're serious about the government, the future, and where we're going, you need a subscription to Epoch Times. It's $50 a year. You get a paper once a week, and it is real verifiable information that is put together. And the headline here is FBI suppression of speech on Twitter calls for congressional investigation, an FBI veteran says. You know, this stuff is really crazy when we look at it. Who would have ever thought in these United States that you and I live in that these kind of things would happen? I mean, Swalwell, the congressman out of California or senator, whatever he is, was with a known China spy, having sex. I don't know a better way to control somebody than that type of control, and nothing was done. He's there. There was a lawsuit that was presented to the Supreme Court, and I think the guy's name was Burroughs. I don't remember. I saw the result of it yesterday. The Supreme Court has looked at it, and then they have denied to hear it. And this was a lawsuit against 385 politicians, including Pence and et cetera, for their oath of office that they broke. When the votes were counted that night from the Electoral College, I remember watching it, and there were over 100 congressmen and senators that objected to what was going on, and they wanted an investigation into what was going on, that there was absolute signs that there was something under the table going on. And I'm just being careful with the words that I use in this. So this lawsuit had nothing about stolen election or fraud. It was about the politicians who give an oath. Their oath of office is an oath to the Constitution of the United States, the same as the military, and protection from enemies, foreign and domestic. So this lawsuit was about going after these people, that with 100 people that stood up and said that they believed that there was something that went on that needed to be investigated, and they denied it, and there was no investigation. And now we start to hear stories that Elon Musk bought Twitter, and more the stories are coming out that they're finding the FBI, the CIA, were controlling the narrative. You know, the Hunter Biden story and that laptop and what was going on there. It just baffles me that people have not been more boisterous in questioning what's going on. And we see the courts that have denied presenting the evidence. In other words, that's where, in my mind, and maybe I'm wrong, folks, maybe I'm wrong. Call me and tell me. You know, the open line, 724-774-1888 or 724-843-1888. You know, you want to talk in this last segment about this kind of stuff. It's just disturbing to me on what is going on. And it's almost like nobody's paying any attention. Nobody cares anymore. I mean, it's our government. It's our future. It's America. And I have two grandboys, 1 5 and 1 8. And everything that this PAPAP does is about making sure that those two little boys, when they grow up, have an opportunity in this great, great country of ours. And I'm almost at the point in fearing, you know, what the world and what we are changing into in America, and have lost sight of integrity and character and what America was built on, and the people that died in the wars to protect our freedom and everything going on. So I challenge you to pay more attention, listen to what's going on, and do some research. Do your own research. There is another, BlackRock is another, there's an article here. This is another article, says, State Attorney General sound alarm over BlackRock and Vanguard buying big stakes in utilities. Now, I can't say this is absolutely true, but I have read articles that said that BlackRock is the largest manager of money in the world. And these two companies together manage over $20 trillion of money. So what if you're a stockholder in a company, let's step back and forget about these are management companies. You know, investment management companies. But if I own a large percentage of stock in a company, would I not have influence over that company in some way? I could go to a board of directors meeting. I could have some kind of control and voice in the direction of that company. I hope you agree with me, because that's the fact of ownership. If I own 51%, that means I run the company, which is what Elon Musk did when he bought Twitter. He is now the head guy and running the company in what he believes. I know in his heart he believes he's fixing it compared to what was going on. But that's what we're talking about. And this BlackRock has a large percentage of ownership by people that belong to the CCP. Now, I don't know, maybe that doesn't do anything for you or whatever, but China is an enemy. And I truly believe, whether it's an information war, whatever you want to call it, but I believe in some way we are at war with China right now. And I believe their influence is so strong in some of our political arenas that the politicians have stepped back. They have not stepped up to do their job that they swore an oath to do when they were there. And maybe the new Republican majority will get into more investigative things going on there. We'll come back and we'll finish up the story in a minute. We're going to take a break, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes to finish up. I'm Tom Young, and we're on WBBP WMBA.
Tune in to Live Mike with Mike Romai, presented by Heritage Valley Health System, weekdays from 6:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. It's an all-new show on Beaver County Radio, where Mike discusses the issues important to Beaver County. There's also special guests, weather, sports with Matt Durzik, and news every half hour with Curtis Walsh. So tune in to Live Mike with Mike Romai, weekdays, right here on Beaver County Radio.
When accidents and injuries happen, you need the experience and insight of the legal team at Luxenberg, Garbett, Kelly & George. At Luxenberg, Garbett, Kelly & George, they have the resources available to see your case from start to finish. Attorney Larry Kelly.
At Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George, we're big boys. We assume all the costs, and we don't expect you to pay a penny. Now, what happens is, if you go to trial and the verdict is not favorable, you don't owe us any fees, nor do you reimburse us the cost. Now, if we're successful, then you'll pay a fee and you'll reimburse us the cost from the recovery. That's the way we do it at LGKG, and that's the way we've done it forever.
For your initial consultation, call the law firm of Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George at 724-658-8535 or online at lgkg.com. Luxembourg, Garbett, Kelly & George, keeping promises for over 80 years.
Hi there, it's Scott from Pentatonics. So from the beginning of our journey in music, the foundation has been music education. It's so incredibly important that we continue to show kids the importance of music in our schools, in our homes, and even in the car. Music is such a powerful expression of emotion and individuality, and we are responsible for keeping the love for music alive. This message is courtesy of the United States Air Force.
Now entering our 75th year of serving Beaver County. You're listening to 99.3 FM, 95.7 FM, 1230 WBVP and 1460 WMBA. Part of the St. Barnabas Radio Network.
Hey, where we are, we're down to minutes left, and I hope in some way I've inspired you today. I hope I have raised your curiosity today to look deeper, because we need to work as citizens of the United States of America to make sure that it stays strong for our kids and our grandchildren for the future. And this stuff that's coming out is disturbing to me, and I hope it's disturbing to you. And I got to believe that there are a lot of listeners that listen to me today. The caller, the compliment he gave me at the end, I was so appreciative of that. And I just hope that I have raised your awareness in some way today in what I'm talking about and what's going on around the world. This FBI and CIA and the things going on. The CIA, for years, it's been known that they worked with Hollywood to have specific messages of content delivered in movies and films to get you and I to think a certain way. Do you remember our first conversation? We started talking today. We were talking about self-talk and the 6 inches between our ears. We are programmable. People are programmable. If you hear something often enough and long enough, it will initiate thinking in your mind that isn't yours. They program you. The TV, the greatest income reducer on the planet is the TV, because we sit there and we watch it, we listen to the advertisements and the things that go on in movies that are controlled, some of the content. And if you don't think that's true, there's an article that I want to finish up with today, and this was December 21st of that Epoch Times, and it's in the opinion section of the paper. And it says, has American democracy been hallucination for nearly 60 years? And this journalist, Roger Simon, call it a democracy, call it a democratic republic, call it a constitutional republic, call it anything you want. It doesn't really matter what America is if there's truth to what Tucker Carlson was reporting the other night via a source he had direct knowledge of still hidden documents concerning the Kennedy assassination. Now, this is the conspiracy theory of all conspiracy theories. And with us now finding the information that is coming out about Twitter and the government influence that they tried to have with censoring people and silencing people, it is so interesting. Indeed, the CIA was in any way involved in the assassination of JFK on November 22nd, 1963, than anything that has happened in the public square in our country since that day has basically been hallucination created by an intelligence agency far deeper than most of us, certainly since I never given to conspiracy theories ever imagined. You know, it's so interesting. And the CIA director, Mike Pompeo, declined to appear on the Carlson show to discuss this was insignificant. We all know about the 51 intelligence officials, John Brennan and others, who fallaciously claimed 2 years ago that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. This have to have known otherwise. Now this. Why are 3% of the Warren Commission documents on the assassination still being hidden after nearly 60 years with all of the major players dead? If not to hide something of serious importance from the American public. We have a phone call. Hello, sir.
Tom, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, you know what? I'd like to call in, but I don't want to miss a word you say. I really don't, and I think that's what a lot of listeners feel too. They don't want to miss a word. Man, I tell you, you are a world of knowledge.
It is just, it's just my nature. I have to know the answer to all the questions, and I want to know all the questions before they're asked. And sometimes that's been to my detriment because I come up with theories and thinking that people, that can't be true. Well, I read about it, but I read about it in more than one source. And it's just amazing and disturbing to me how we as America see people that have lost sight of what America is. Their dreams have been stolen by the news media and everything going on around us, and it's been stolen. They stole your thinking process, because even in education, that Fabian Society, when I did my research for that last book that I wrote and was published, The Family Money Farm, the CFO Project, that's where I found the Fabian Society and some of this research that was just, it blew me away. It blew me away that people, they just don't know. And that people live their life paycheck to paycheck and for the most part, and they just live a shrouded life. And sometimes you got to get out there and you got to dig around and do some research to at least formulate a realistic opinion of what's going on.
Right. Hey, I'll tell you what, through the years, I've learned a lot from you. Really appreciate it. Like I say, you got so much good information on money management and so forth. I really appreciate you. And as far as U.S. and China relations, about the only one that I know that would really love the Chinese government would be the Clintons.
Well, you know, it's obvious right now the information coming out about Hunter Biden and the millions of dollars, the $1.5 billion money management deal that Hunter created. I'm in the financial business. I'm just thinking about the percentage of fees and commissions that was made out of that $1.5 billion that the Bank of China gave Hunter Biden to put into his management investment company.
Right.
You know, even if he only made a half to a 1%, that's a boatload of money, man.
Yeah, but you remember back in the early 90s, we had nothing made here in China.
That's right.
Until the Clintons sold us out.
Yep.
I wonder how much they paid the Clintons. Well, I better watch it. I might be deemed a conspiracy.
That you know, when I decided to do, they asked me to do this show for Eddy, and I love Eddy because he does my show. He's the host of my monthly show that I do, and they asked me to do this for Eddy, and I agreed, and I've been thinking about it a long time. And I really, really enjoyed today. I spent a lot of time yesterday preparing the information to come here. My goal was to inspire people, to raise your level of thought, to stretch your mind a little bit, that there's more out there, and there's more things that you have to become aware of in order to be aware, you know, and that's the challenge. People aren't aware, so they're not aware of what's going on. Thank you so much for your call.
Tom, real quick, maybe we could squeeze Frank a little bit to get you to a weekly show.
I'm sorry, repeat that. You muffled out. I'm sorry.
I was going to say maybe we could put pressure on Frank to give you a weekly show sometime.
That's been a discussion. I don't know if I'd be on maybe a couple times a month, and actually instead of doing the 1 hour a month, do it 3 hours like we did today. You know, so that's in discussion. I don't know where it's going to go. Today was my test, and anybody that's out there listening, if you could, you know, give a hoot to the radio station, tell them you liked me, didn't like me, and so forth. But we're coming to the end of today. It has been a hoot and a pleasure to be here, and humbling to be here, and to have listeners literally with the St. Barnabas Company, and there's 4 radio stations now. It isn't just WBBP and WMBA, because I was here in 1987 with Chris Shovlin when the original Teleforum. I was here for a bunch of years way back then. So we've been here a long time. We're running out of time. Thank you so much for your call. God bless everybody. May all your dreams and hopes in life come true. God bless.
Hi, folks. I'm with our good friend John Diagardi from Roe Monument.